846 billion shillings to plug the budget deficit in the fiscal year starting July 1st. Sorry for that. Now MPs Kimani Ichung'wah, Owen Baya, Robert Bukose and John Kiarie opposed the motion, saying Treasury will have a free hand to breach the new debt ceiling as long as it can explain to Parliament what caused excessive borrowing if changes to the law are approved. Now, the new World Bank projects Kenya's economy will grow at a slower rate of 5.5% this year compared to 7.5% in 2021. According to the 25th edition of the World Bank report, the impact of the war in Ukraine is weighing on the global economic recovery from the pandemic. Domestically, a key risk to the outlook is the current drought, which is having a devastating effect on food security and livelihoods in affected parts of the country. The drought is also necessitating increased social spending on food assistance. The report further notes that the economy is vulnerable to the commodity price shocks resulting from the war, especially through fuel, fertilizer, wheat, and other food imports. And Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate Raila Odinga's remarks on Mitumba clothes have caused an uproar while unveiling his manifesto. The ODM leader said Mitumba clothes worn by Kenyans could in fact have been worn by people who are already dead. Odinga said he would promote the local fabric industry by giving Mitumba importers first priority in marketing locally manufactured clothes. His sentiments, however, ignited mixed reactions from Kenyans and leaders from the Kenya Kwanza team. On his official Twitter page, Kenya Kwanza flag bearer Deputy President William Ruto critiqued Odinga's remarks, saying his trickle-down economic model was dangerous. Ruto said he would use technical and vocational education and training to assist the sector players grow from sewing, cottage to textile and leather industry if elected on August 9th. Speaking at a business forum, the Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate said his sentiments were misunderstood and taken out of context. He reaffirmed his respect for the Mitumba sector, noting that it had employed millions of Kenyans. Additionally, Odinga hit out at his opponents for taking advantage of the public uproar. Now, the Ministry of Education will start inspecting private schools across the country to ensure they have adequate facilities for junior secondary schools. These, as the first batch of grade 7 learners are expected to join the junior secondary school under the competency-based curriculum program. Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha, speaking at Mwiki Secondary School, where he had gone to launch CBC classroom, said the exercise will aid in ensuring a seamless transition devoid of any hurdles. CS Magoha further stated that the ministry has so far identified about 1,200 classrooms in private schools and will be expecting 5,000 before January 2023. They have assured 5,000 classrooms before the end of the year. Now, 1,816 people died as a result of road crashes in the first 6 months of this year in the country. The National Transport and Safety Authority says the number of deaths is increasing, with Nairobi and Kiambu counties the top contributors to these grim statistics. NTSA Deputy Director for Road Safety Duncan Kibogong says 66% of the accidents took place between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. and during the weekend. Additionally, the report disclosed that majority of road crashes victims are aged between 24 and 34, with males accounting for 84% of total deaths. Kibogong spoke in Mombasa during the official opening of a conference on improving road transport safety that also drew representatives from the Kenya National Highways Authority, the Kenya Urban Roads Authority, and others. And plans by the World Health Organization to establish logistics hub in Nairobi are almost complete, with the groundbreaking set for later this month. A virtual meeting between Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe and WHO Regional Director Africa Dr. Matshidiso Moeti resolved to fast-track contribution and construction of the facility that will be equipped with emergency medical personnel, commodities and equipment to support Kenya and other countries in the region. Speaking during the meeting, the healthcare said there was need for Kenya and the region to adequately prepare for the next pandemic, adding that the COVID-19 epidemic provided critical lessons, especially for developing nations. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
SpiceFM. Spice up your life.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on SpiceFM.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get that kind of a leadership.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. The truth is, all the men refused to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani maternity hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it up.
own money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room.
It's
Kenya's
Wednesday.
biggest
Did I get that right?
conversation.
Yes, I did. And it looks like not too crazy a start to this morning's traffic. A little bit here and there on Jogo Road. Langata Road looks pretty good, but we know that's going to pile up in a very short time. Coming off of Thika Superhighway this morning. Not much traffic. A little bit here and there on Juja Road. That was a headache for a lot of folks yesterday. We're going to see the build-up of traffic on the Thika Superhighway. That is definitely going to happen. Coming out of Westlands, for now, looks pretty good. And on Outer Ring, that's also not a problem. Traffic really hasn't started. It looks like 6 o'clock is not the time folks want to be out on these Nairobi streets. We'll keep an eye on things. The weather is changing, so that means that the clouds are pretty low in certain parts of the country. So if you're going out towards Limuru, and then out towards Naivasha, Nakuru, what we saw yesterday is going to repeat itself today. Let's keep an eye on things, folks, and talking about half an hour and see what it looks like. Seems like we started Wednesday off right. Let's talk. SpiceFM, KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
SpiceFM. Nyeri. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only
9
way
minutes
to
after
start
6.
your
Good
day.
morning. It's the 8th day of April 2022. Welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Bwana City Muga and Madam Ndu Okoh wako kwenye studio hapa na mimi. Madam Ndu.
Yes.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Today you raised your seat, eh?
How?
You're like up there.
Where am I normally?
Yeah?
Down there.
Down there.
Not up there.
Not up there.
It's a
boy.
thing. I didn't realize.
How are you?
I
Didn't realize?
No, please. I'm fine, thank you.
You're fine, thank you.
Yeah, fine, thank you. Yangu ni mzuri leo. Yeah.
City,
Yes.
how you doing?
Niko mzima bwana.
Yeah?
I am well.
You're well?
Yes.
You thank the Lord.
Sure, yes.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, I've just seen this morning of a picture, but cut from just the chest down. Or, well, let's say from the tummy down. This person is wearing a checked blazer, some brown trousers, and some very well polished brown shoes. He's got a pot belly. And then someone has written there, I really don't have much to say. And you can visualize. I really don't have much to say. Mine is just to welcome everybody to this home. As you've heard, I'm a friend of this family for very many years.
You can almost recite that speech.
And we thank you, everybody, for coming.
Moreover, but then you went furthermore.
This young man, when he started going to school, we worked with his parents very much. And
very closely.
And we're very happy now that he's graduating today. And he has invited us here to come and celebrate.
Eat something with him.
And eat something with him. So I really don't have much to say.
Translated into Kiswahili, yangu ni machache.
You had a good day, City?
I did, actually. Very good day.
Very good?
Yes. The weather has been kind. It hasn't been very cold.
Is it cold? Is it warming up, or is it... I'm not against...
No, it's in my body tells me it's not very cold. Yes.
And that's what you
yes,
go with.
The warming up thing and that one.
Those are stories.
That one I will suspend judgment. Yes.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, everybody. Today, we are going to have the jam-packed full show. At 7 a.m., we want to have with us in the studio a young man who wanted to be on the presidential ballot again this year. His name is Mudiora Carriera. In 2017, he was on the ballot, but as a running mate to somebody else. This time, he wanted to be on the ballot as the lead with a running mate. Mudiora Carriera, presidential aspirant for 2022. Then he went to present his papers. He was the last person to appear before the IEBC chairperson, Wafula Chebukati, on Monday. He was told, my friend, nah, sorry. He was so disappointed. He stood there. He addressed his supporters. And he said, this system is rigged against weak people. A young man such as myself from Kawangware, coming here wanting to lead my country, so passionate about it, and look what they're saying, locking me out with flimsy reasons. And he took out what he said was the voter's card, took out a lighter, and set it ablaze. Said, Kamanio, Wachaikai. He will be here with us and tell us what really made him to burn his voter's card at the Bomas of Kenya, and whether he really knows that he can still vote even after burning that piece of paper. At 8 o'clock, we'll have somebody else, and this is somebody who has been a governor for 2 terms. He has initially joined the Azimio One Kenya coalition through his party, and then he moved out with his party from Azimio and went to Kenya Kwanza. Dr. Alfred Mutua, the Machakos County Governor, will be with us at 8 o'clock. Why he ditched Azimio for Kenya Kwanza? Is it him? Is it his people? Is it his party? Is it on principle? Or is it just political expediency? Okay. The 9 o'clock hour, we talk about climate. So, you know what's been happening in Sweden. President Uhuru Kenyatta has been there. Kenya and Sweden have been co-hosting and co-chairing the what? The global environment talks. Now, back in Kenya, there's a group that has been working very hard at sensitizing communities about the dangers of environmental degradation, and particularly global warming, and particularly use of dirty fuels. When the Kenyan government piloted the Lamu coal power plant, there are very many communities, organizations that went out there and said, no to coal in Kenya. When recently Uganda and Tanzania signed a deal with Total Energies to have a long pipeline coming from Uganda going all the way to Tanzania, they have been up in arms. Omar El Mawi is an advocate and is a coordinator of the Stop the East African crude oil pipeline that is set to run from Uganda to Tanzania. He's going to come here and tell us why they are opposing the construction of this, which is set to become the longest heated pipeline in the world. He'll tell us about that. And yes, so you tell us about COVID.
Let me do that. Some numbers that you might not want to hear. 6.6% is what we're looking at in terms of positivity rate in the country, with 163 new cases of COVID in a day from a sample size of 2,470. So it's not very encouraging in terms of numbers, but that is what we are looking at. There have been no recorded deaths from COVID, but the call continues to remain to come out and get vaccinated as the front line of defense. Interesting enough, since the country received 27 million vaccines, not received many more after that, and it has just been a couple 100,000 here and there, but it has just been at 27 million. This is coming off a time where it says that the United States, for example, has wasted 82 million COVID vaccine doses. And how has that happened? U.S. territories and federal agencies discarded 82.1 million COVID vaccine doses from December 2020 through mid-May this year. Just over 11% of the doses that the Fed had distributed, according to data from the CDC's. There's an increase from the 65 million doses that the CDC told the media that had been wasted as of late February. Two retail pharmacy chains, the CVS and Walmart, are responsible for over a quarter of the doses thrown away in the US in that time period, in part due to the sheer volume of vaccine that they handled. So they just had too much. They didn't know what to do with it.
And
a lot of it went to waste.
And it was expiring, so they wasted.
Yes, they did. It was experiment. It has the way in which the vaccine had been put together is that the shelf life was not very long, and unfortunately, the uptake also again was pretty low. So you had states where they discarded more than a quarter of their doses. Some states tossed 28%. Nearly 4 million doses were tossed. Alaska threw away almost 27%. This is all according to CDC data. So then looking at these collective numbers said that 82.1 million doses of COVID having been tossed out by
Does
the
this not
US.
remind you of the bully? A bully who is on the queue for food, but he's a big guy. He goes with 2 plates, grabs everything, puts
in
it on his plate
portion.
in double portions and goes and sits down somewhere and only eats 1 plate.
Yeah, or maybe a few things from one plate.
Touches things on the other plate, so it makes it impossible for
anybody else to eat it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That is what America and the other companies, other countries.
These guys keep speaking from both sides of the mouth. Huh? COVID provided them with an opportunity to demonstrate all these wonderful things they keep saying, and to also put into practice the intentions that they keep saying are good. They did not. That particular test, they did not pass.
No, unfortunately, they didn't do very well here. Let me quickly tell you about what's going on in the UK. So, of course, this no confidence vote was held in Parliament. Bojo sails through, but they still say he's on shaky waters. The government's scientific advisor said it is really important that everyone should have stuck to the rules aimed at curbing the virus. And he's saying this in light of the fact that they're going into the colder months later on in the year, and saying the possibility of COVID rising again and having these protocols, in place then is very, very important. So he's saying, look, I wish the guy would have just done what he told the rest of the country to do, and we hope that moving forward in the next four or so months, that everybody will do what they're supposed to do. That's what's happening there. So just in case you're wondering, he did go through on that no confidence vote, and he's all right, at least for now.
He has survived for now. Okay. 19 minutes after 6, we are live streaming the show on YouTube and Facebook. If you're online, please say hello to us. Would like to say hello back at you. And this is after we take a look at the weather forecast.
Mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. Highs of 23 and lows of 15. 15 is what it is in Nakuru, where it's raining as well, going to highs of 23 today. 22 degrees will be the high in Nyeri, where it's cloudy at 13, and it's raining in Eldoret at 13. We'll see highs of 20. Light rain is starting the morning in Mombasa at 23, highs of 29, and we're looking at rain showers as well in Malindi at 25, going to highs of 29 today. It's also raining in Kisumu at 19, highs of 25 and lows of 18, while it's raining in Kakamega as well at 18. It'll go to highs of 23 and lows of 16. The showers are also coming down in Kampala at 19, highs of 24 and lows of 18. It's mostly clear in Dar es Salaam at 22. We'll see highs of 31. Into Wednesday, Johannesburg is clear at 7. We'll see highs of 19 and lows of 5, while it's mostly clear in Lagos as well at 26, highs of 30. 32 will be the high in a clear Kinshasa currently at 22, which will come down to lows of 21. We'll see lows of 14 in a sunny Beijing currently at 23, going into afternoon Wednesday, highs of 25 today. It's a rainy morning in Paris at 16, highs of 21 and lows of 13. It's also raining in London at 14. We'll see highs of 20 and lows of 13. And to round things out in New York, Tuesday night is 20 degrees and raining as well. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 20.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Morning.
Berino Gema, good morning. Nicolok Kamakawa Sikunjema Njema to you as well. Soroti City in Uganda. That's where Rogers Muwulo is tuned in from. Okay. Morris Monye Oyando says, good morning. 12 hours of rain in Ombei. Where is Ombei?
Ombei, Kisumu County.
Okay.
When you get to a town called Ahero, if you're heading towards Nairobi, there is an immediate turnoff as you get to Ahero on your left. If you continue along that road, you will eventually get to Ombei.
Ombei has been raining for 12 hours.
And still counting.
And it's still counting. And you wonder if the rest of Kisumu is like this. Yet I dreamt that I was in Nairobi fighting a flood in my house.
It's because Morris lived in Nairobi for a very long time.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Rogers Lai says it's chilly in Mombasa. Okay, I'll take your word for it. Rural Karaoke is tuned in from London, Ontario in Canada. Keep on working. We will. Good morning, Mombasa tuned in. Lois Kodwal says, good morning from the outskirts of Wayaki Way specifically. Eric, the stage opposite Carlo on Wayaki Way was fixed. Just wanted you to know that.
Stage opposite Carlo. Okay.
Sawa.
Okay.
Robert says it's the 8th of June. All right. Bernard says, good morning. Boston is locked. Daniel says, good morning. Salimia, the proverbial man. Proverbial man. Miss Salimika.
Proverbial man has received the greetings.
The proverbial greetings.
Yes, and he proverbs you back.
Bas. Proverbs to you. Live from Pronto, Kimathi. Okay. Good morning to you, Robert. Kibagendi Lona says, good morning. Kilungu Hills in Makwene County. That sounds really interesting. Daniel says, good morning. Shadrach, good morning. Good morning from Tinderet, another place where I'd like to go just because I like the name of it, the sound of it. Sky and Willie say good morning as well. Franklin Andrew says good morning. And he says, with respect, what percentage of donated vaccine, COVID-19... Okay, do slow down. What percentage of donated COVID-19 vaccines has Kenya destroyed since March 2021? As positivity rates go up, what has become of the MOH efforts to control the spread of COVID-19, as well as distribute vaccines to 27 million adults by the end of this month? Okay, those are questions that maybe could form a thesis. But the first question that you asked, about 1 million vaccines have actually been thrown out. That's the answer to that. All right. Who else is online? Everybody. Eric, Kibi, Daniel, Bucci, everybody. We see you online this morning. Karibuni sana. Good morning.
Okay. City, the proverbial proverb.
Well, we are still in East Africa. We've moved from the islands of the Comoros. We are now in Madagascar.
Okay.
Yes, formerly Malagasy Republic. Capital city. Antananarivo.
It's Tanariva, basically.
Yes, official language French.
So Tanariva in French is Antananarivo.
Yes.
Tanariva in French is Antananarivo.
As an island, it's the fourth largest island on the planet. Inakwaga hivyo. But with a collection of islands around it.
It's larger than Africa.
Africa is not an
Africa
island,
is
my
not an
friend.
island.
It's an
Baba.
island.
No, it's
Is it
not.
surrounded by water or not?
It is.
Yes
but
or
not
no?
on-
No.
Not on all sides.
Not fully. In
So
order
we-
for it to be an island, it must
we-
be completely surrounded by
We
water.
cut a thing there.
Like Australia. Australia.
We cut a thing there.
What?
Now we're all surrounded by water.
No, there's a
The
strip
Suez
where-
Canal.
Eric has a point.
But we're not going to listen to that for now.
Sure.
Carry
No,
on.
he has a point.
No.
You know, this is the thing. Eric, point taken.
And chalked up.
Higher. The fourth largest island on the planet.
It is. Second largest country consisting mostly of islands.
Okay.
All right, you tumemaliza hiyo.
Tumemaliza.
All right, sawa. Now, Proverbs. You know, there were two Proverbs that I looked at. And one is more of a poem. It's a lengthy, it's a prose. It's lengthy. So I decided that one I will leave for tomorrow. Okay? But the proverb for today, this one was equally interesting. Hey. Don't be like a shadow, a constant companion, but never a comrade.
Don't be like a shadow.
A constant companion,
but
never a comrade.
Shadow doesn't participate in anything that you're doing.
Just follows you about.
Mimics you.
Sometimes even hides from you.
Yes, sometimes it's, yes. So, always a companion. It's always there, not a comrade.
Can't count on it for anything,
Participate.
really. Consolidate. It can't actually do anything for you.
Authenticate.
And just sit there.
Surely.
Doing nothing. Let's look at the newspaper headlines. www.standardmedia.co.ke. Look for premium content and you can get it. Can Raila deploy 6 cops in all stations in 100 days? That is what he promised in his 10-point manifesto. Every police station in this country in the first 100 days, 6 police officers.
Okay. Oh.
6 minimum.
Police seater.
Elfusi. You're quite silly. To tell you. You're not well. Olay.
So promises, man. What are you looking at in the papers?
Okay, so while you were asleep or awake or whatever else was doing, members of parliament have approved Treasury's proposal to raise the debt ceiling to 10 trillion shillings. The National Assembly yesterday agreed to raise the debt ceiling to 10 trillion shillings in what is aimed at giving the National Treasury headroom to borrow some more. With the current debt ceiling at 9 trillion, it means the country is 600 billion shillings shy of breaching the limit, with the official data from the Central Bank of Kenya showing the country's public debt stood at 8.4 trillion by the end of March. The proposal by the National Treasury to push up the debt ceiling was, however, opposed by lawmakers allied to Deputy President William Ruto, who felt the changes only aggravate the country's debt situation. This came after the MPs, through the special motion amended by the Public Finance Management Regulations 2015, published a legal notice, number 89 of 2022. Initially, the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Okoh had proposed to shift the debt ceiling to an anchor of 55% of the gross domestic product in net present value terms. This is what he had initially tried to do. Lawmakers, however, disagreed with the proposal, said absolutely not, forcing the Treasury to revert to the debt ceiling. So he tried to, essentially get money through another source. Didn't happen. So he had to go back and say...
Peg it as a percentage of GDP, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so that it didn't look as though he was in breach of anything. But that didn't work out, so he had to come back here. All right? Now... it is a decision that will not go down well with the IMF, which had pushed Kenya to go back to an anchor of debt to the GDP, which is what he wanted to do in the first place, describing it as the international best practice. Now, this is interesting because the next administration is expected to implement the 3.3 trillion shilling budget for the financial year 2022-2023, which the country expects to borrow close to 846 billion shillings. Without raising the limit, it means the government would have struggled to fund debt-driven projects without breaking the law. While MPs led by Majority Leader Amos Kimunya and others supported the proposal of increase of the country's debt ceiling, the Ruto allied MPs, specifically Kimani Ichung'wah and others, opposed this. They said people have talked about debt as if it's evil. Debt becomes evil if it has been used for wrong reasons. I'm looking at this debt cap increase as an interim measure. The administration coming in on August 9th should come back to this house and ensure our borrowing is at a percentage of the GDP. This is what Kimunya said. So basically, what's happening here is let's do all of this. The folks who are coming in August then will be the ones to regularize. But right now, you know what? We can do this and we should be okay.
Let's allow the next administration to borrow. So that then they're able to finance this budget that they've been given of 3.3 trillion shillings. You know, I see the culmination of some game here that has been played. So the IMF, this same administration is the one that went to Parliament in the first place and said, let's not peg this thing on GDP. Let's look at absolute figures. Okay? They were given the absolute figure ceiling. Then the IMF, when now things were looking bad and we were going to IMF to ask for money, IMF said, global best practice, peg it to GDP. Okoh said, okay, we'll peg it to GDP. But Uko chini, they're telling MPs that
we don't agree this thing.
GDP story, leave them.
Forget that.
So he applies GDP, MPs reject GDP, and they give him an absolute figure. Now Okoh will go to IMF and say, you see, Parliament
I tried to pass.
Is a constitutional body. It's the one that gives the authority.
I can't do anything.
We can't do anything. You see now where we are.
We wanted to.
It was all along.
Karata.
That status that we acquired after rebasing whatever arithmetic that we have for
middle income
developing country.
Can we be debased downwards so that we go back,
we go back to being poor?
LDC.
To that same position of being third world banana republic.
So we go back to being poor.
Yeah, so that we can actually have access to borrowing. The sort of borrowing that we now cannot borrow because we are supposed to be middle emerging, whatever it is.
You know, attain a certain status. It's like the nouveau riche in society.
You can't eat
then
the status.
Want to take it away.
We can borrow and spend money well.
No. You know, when you bolster a certain position to show that you have made progress, and indeed there is progress that you can point to, but if that particular progress doesn't cascade to the lowest possible common denominator, as in what we call the Mwananchi, the Mamamboga, then it isn't real.
I think the problem is with the handling of that, the debts that where we've gotten the debts and handling of that. If that money was being properly utilized to get into areas that would develop and move things, then we could say yes. If we could sit back and say, all the money that has been borrowed has actually gone into something that we can see, tangible. Even if it's not bearing the fruits today, we can see infrastructure. There were dams, there was this and the other. The SGR was not inflated. If all those things were done the way they should have been done, and not paying for land that has not been acquired, and yet you've paid $1 billion shillings plus for land that hasn't been. If we were not doing this nonsense that we're doing, we'd actually be proudly saying that we are a middle-income developing country.
You see,
and would be able to.
You've explained it well, Eric, because the things that then would make us this developing middle-income country progressively would be evidenced. There would be things you could point to. But when you have a situation where the monies that were supposed to ostensibly bring us that position has gone and been fiddled away to wherever it's been taken in the direction it has gone to, then it means the evidence of this middle classness that we're speaking of doesn't exist. Again, in the absence of that, I am saying,
let's go back.
Go
back to Egypt.
Let's just say this is where we are.
Go back to your mother's house.
This is where we are, okay? Because when you're a middle-income country and all the things that go along with it, the life of the common Mwananchi also needs to have improved.
Let's go back to Egypt, this promised land of milk and honey. There's no milk, there's no cow in the desert.
Egypt, we were getting 3 meals a day.
Yeah, sure. So pumpkins.
Allah.
And watermelon.
And watermelons. 25 minutes to 7.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Tengesa kidole. Tengesa kidole, agano kidole, agano kidole, agano. Thank you.
The political class, the contestants, everybody is trying to outsteal the other.
Remorse is not taught in any school. Manners is something you get from your mother. You don't get it from your political party.
Why are we so unfocused as a country? Why are we spending money and resources, yet we have real challenges in this country?
This coronavirus pandemic should teach us one thing, that universal healthcare is critical. Because at this point, whether you have a medical card that covers you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
This is the
Okay, Langata Road is what is building up right now. We're seeing some action on Jogo Road as well. Coming into the CBDs where you see most of the action this morning. Let's look at what's happening on the Thika Superhighway. Just past Survey, going towards the Utali Drift and then out towards the Pangani Underpass is where you'll see most of the action right now. We have some traffic building up on Kiambu Road. But apart from that, nobody's, really... Okay, folks are up and about, but we're not causing any traffic situations. It would be nice if we can remain in this stead, at least for, the next couple of hours. We're going to have to wait and see what it looks like in a short while, but for now it looks like traffic is actually manageable. Last couple of days has been really eventful with accidents here and there. How about we keep things to a dull roar today? Let's try that and see what happens. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Okay, 23 minutes to 7.
Mornings
the Asset
done right.
Recovery Agency. You know it?
Mm-hmm.
We have heard the boss of the ARA here. So they've gone to court and they want to recover. They've applied and the court has agreed to freeze the account of a certain lady who had just about $1 million in her account.
$1 million what?
Dollars. Just $1 million.
Just.
Shorty had
Right.
Just $1 million. So the lady is called Isabel Wanjohi, and she allegedly intended to transfer to South Africa that money without proper declaration of the source of the money. The ARA lawyer Jennifer Getiri went to court and said, "We suspect that Wanjohi, who works at Platinum Credit Limited, is being used by fraudsters as a conduit for money laundering, in which they use her account to deposit cash in dollars and hurriedly transfer the money to other accounts in South Africa." ARA claims that they received intelligence information that Wanjohi was engaged in money laundering, and upon investigation discovered that her account at Standard Chartered received the suspicious amount deposited on a single day. The agency's investigator, Sautet Matipei, in his affidavit, saw that the money was deposited on April 13th, and when asked about the source, Ms. Wanjohi said, "That's just a loan from another microfinance."
100 million shilling.
Yeah.
So
people get loans of up to $1 billion, so 100 million isn't, surely.
Sasa, if I need a loan of 100 million shillings, I can apply for a loan of 100 million shillings.
No vex,
no problem.
sorry.
She told investigators that the amount was an unsecured loan that she took from Platcorps Holding Limited, but she did not explain the purpose for the loan, which made us believe that they are proceeds of organized crime and money laundering. According to the Assets Recovery Agency, Platcorps Holdings Limited is another microfinance lender which provides credit to private individuals and small and medium-sized enterprises, and does not have the capacity to lend an individual 115 million shillings without security for the funds. It was completely unsecured. Just right. Matipei added that the woman produced an alleged loan agreement between herself and Platcorps Holdings, but it had discrepancies, including it didn't have signatures, it had no witnesses, it had made an agreement. The agency added that since Wanjohi is an employee of another microfinance institution, she is colluding with other people who use her accounts to launder money whose sources are not known. Justice Esther Minor ruled that there is imminent danger. If this amount is transferred to that account in South Africa, we will not be able to trace it back. So hold it. Let us get the facts.
She also works for another microfinance.
Yeah, she works for microfinance.
But there is nothing wrong.
She
in
works for
working
Platinum
No, I'm
Credit
just
Limited.
confirming.
She works for Platinum Credit Limited.
Okay.
Then she went to Platco and applied for, like a small loan.
Okay.
$1 million.
And the evidence of this application doesn't exist.
she has
an agreement. It's just that this agreement lacks some signatures and does not have witnesses.
But must it have signatures and must it have witnesses?
If they have agreed, but must you even have something written?
Yes.
Well, yeah, you're a business.
Sheesh.
If the lender is satisfied and they want to lend you the money, are they committing an offense by lending someone money even if it's unsecured?
Yes.
Oh, and what penal code is that you're referring to?
With the law, Pokmura.
I was hoping you'd say the new
the 2010 Constitution.
It is a Pokmura. The proceeds of crime and anti-Pokamla.
Money Laundering Act.
The cautious approach that has been taken by the courts is understandable. But to label everything you don't understand as equals to money laundering, what's the threshold? At what point do transactions fall into the category of money laundering?
When they are not explained. The basic thing that you're supposed to do is, as a lender, know your customer. Second thing is, as you deposit the money in any account and as you seek to transfer, explain. Explain the source, explain the reason. So, you have gotten this money from X, it's a loan, all right, and you want to transfer it to South Africa. What is its purpose? I'm purchasing, I'm buying, blah, 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 blah. I'm paying so and so. Or I'm taking the money here so that it can
do this, that.
Yeah, just show that if you're doing everything above board, just show.
Then it will be all right. I think so. The alarm. I think
alarm bells are here.
Alarm bells.
Wait a moment.
It
is my money.
Sure, but according to the law, if you're going to transfer or receive a certain amount of money beyond a certain amount, then you're just being asked to declare source of funds, etc., etc.
Purpose.
That's it. Now, if it is legit, then you shouldn't have a problem. But now the alarm bells go off to ARA and the ilk because you don't have this explanation. Where is the money going? And even when you're doing the transfer,
did someone complain that money had been taken from them?
Even when you're doing the
yes, exactly.
As if people who are doing clean business doing unclean business will say,
why must I tell everybody about what I want to do with my money?
But what I'm saying is, CT, is that the alarm bells go off when you are going to transfer this money and there's a certain part which asks you to declare 1, 2, 3, and then you do not, or you are unable to, or you refuse to. That's when they say, hold on a minute, is everything here all right?
It's also entirely possible that there could be genuine mistakes.
Yes, for sure.
Then you know what? She went and she applied for this loan. The person that the company she's applying a loan from is a company that knows her very well.
Because of the fact that she works with this other one.
Yeah, and I need money urgently because you see, kuna kadil kama Ivana in South Africa.
So we can do your things quickly, we'll sort out later.
Get the money, we regularize as we move.
It's possible.
Then somebody there goes and tells the area, people,
blow with 3 whistles. 3 whistles in the mouth.
Chafu goes and akwambia polisi ati kumpa pesa and creates that impression.
Had the bank complained?
That what? The bank also has a responsibility.
It's possible that they could be the ones who even blew the whistle.
It's possible. They also have a responsibility to say source and all of this because they are the ones who ask. They're the first port of call. When you're transferring the money, the bank is the first port of call who has to answer these questions, have as a requirement by law. So now, if they also don't have the answer, they'll raise hands and say, teacher,
so what you're telling me,
this one doesn't have. Okay, we can't do the work.
Got you. As they say, got you as in meaning I have understood what you're saying. But let me understand further. So we're saying, when we talk about all these monies we keep President tells us 2 billion a day. Somebody else tells us God knows. So all this money, it must pass through some banking system within the country.
Yes.
At some point.
Yes.
Are we saying that alarm bells go off all the time these things happen? Because it's a great deal of money that we're speaking of.
No, alarm bells don't go off every time.
But they choose specific people for whom alarm bells must go off on.
No, there are people who come with proper explanation.
Proper explanation. It may be a lie, but I mean, you have people
I
who
have
supply
an
the maize.
I have an LSO
Yeah.
from this institution.
Prison.
I have the payment, the invoice. Payment has come in. So
I'm receiving money.
What alarm bells would you raise if you're the bank? You can see the documentation. Then I am now withdrawing my money so that I can pay things here and there. The source of the money, government.
There it is, I had given you.
Government.
Whether it's a lie or not is not the issue. I have the paperwork. I've shown you.
It's not good to have a lot of money in this country, isn't it?
Where? You 2 million yako,
especially if it's in dollars. Huh?
It depends. It's not good to be a small person with a lot of money.
People don't know you and you have 100 million.
Your
name is not Nani and you have 100 million. They will ask you.
What story are you looking at?
I am looking at several things, but let me just turn to the discussion. I mean, I do not wish to discuss politics. I want to discuss something a little more, and just, you know how you see an article, and then when you want to talk about it, you now can't find it. Yes. It was here, just here. Now, it's not where I left it. Please, somebody else.
What was it about?
See, if I knew, I would have said so.
Okay, do.
A few eggs short of a dozen, I'm telling you. Okay, so another story that was a little bit bothersome. Junior high. Why Magoha's new classes plan falls short? Remember, I know you had taken issue with this sometime, Eric, saying, how are we going to do this actually? What's the problem? See, there's classrooms. You can move. What's the problem? Secondary schools require about 30,000 classrooms, among other facilities, to be ready to admit 1.4 million learners in January next year when we regularize the school year, right? And when the competency-based curriculum rolls out in junior secondary. Remember, up until now, competency-based has only gone until grade 6, right? So we're going to go into grade 7 and move ahead. According to the official data, the double intake of the CBC and 844 learners will create a shortfall of about 1,489,144 places in secondary schools. With the recommended class size of between 45 and 50 students, this would require 29,783 more classrooms, which is way beyond the 10,000 earmarked by the government for completion by the end of next month. With the current population, many secondary schools are already greatly over-enrolled. According to the Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha, the government is also banking on private schools to complement the efforts and put up 5,000 more classrooms. So far, only 1,200 have been completed by private schools. Inspection of the classrooms in private schools for compliance with health and safety guidelines is currently ongoing. Magoha, however, dismissed concerns over the preparedness and insisted that there will be no crisis, and that whichever government would take over after the August general election would continue to expand infrastructure in secondary schools. Okay, so we already know that the conversation is happening. A couple of weeks ago, the Ministry of Education did call in private schools and basically said, look here, folks, we're having a problem. We're not going to be able to take on everybody come January 2023. We're not going to have enough space. So what we're requiring you to do is, if you have these spaces within your facilities, put up some more classrooms, because what is going to happen is that you're going to take in some of the students, which has been the cry from private schools. Let's take in more students. Public system is saying it's going to need to happen because we just don't have enough space. And the problem is now that they're just not moving fast enough. Only 1,200 new classrooms have been built by private schools. They need 27,000 more by January. We're talking about 7 months, 6 months to go, and it looks like this may not happen.
So there's a quota for private schools?
Basically, what has happened is that the ministry basically went and said, look, there's going to be an overflow. We know this already. 1.4 million right now because of the double intake. We will not have enough space. So we will likely see that students will come into the private system because we just can't.
So private secondary schools.
Yes. They just cannot. But the problem being now facilities. And it's not just the classroom, Because we're looking at junior secondary, where we're looking at labs, we're looking at whether it be ICT labs, chemistry labs, etc., etc. So there must be that kind of equipped classroom. All right. And this is in addition to the 10,000 that was supposed to have been completed by the end of July 2022. Problem.
The article I was talking about.
You found it.
It's on page 14 of the Standard.
Right.
Teacher faces jail for contempt failure to readmit 20 students.
Okay.
This is how the story goes. And I will read. A school administrator in Nyeri risks a 6-month jail term for contempt after contravening a court order to readmit 20 students who had been expelled from the institution. In her ruling yesterday, Justice Florence Muchemi found Othaya Boys High School Principal Edward Muhuni guilty of disobeying court orders issued on March the 23rd. She said the applicants had provided stamped copies acknowledging that the order was received by school administration who had responded. The students had provided enough proof, and I'm reading the quotation from the principal and the school's board of management, had been served with the order. Muchemi said Justice Muchemi faulted the school administration for failing to challenge the order in court. Through lawyer Muhuno Gishimu, the student submitted that they were suspended in October last year after attacking 3 colleagues and injuring 1. The matter went to court. The court said readmit the students. The head teacher and the BOM said nothing doing. We are not readmitting these people. They didn't like the order. The court said you should have challenged this matter in court through your lawyers. But if you disobey a court order,
there is only one consequence.
Yes. Now, this is the drama around the real issue. The real issue is some students attacked other students.
Allegedly.
According to this report, they allegedly attacked other students. This allegedly was so real that one was actually injured. And there's no allegedly after this one was injured. There is nowhere in this story that I hear of a discussion within the school premises and with the board to determine what it is that led to this altercation. Because it is what this whole drama was brought about by that.
There's something that happened in this school. Because even as you look at what the principal says, this principal says he went to the school's ablution block where the incident happened and rescued 3 boys.
Yes.
They were hiding in the toilet, in the bathrooms. And that's why he rescued the boys. And then after investigation, they established the 20 who are said to have participated in this act of bullying. So there's an issue in this school.
There is an issue.
And even when the BOM says, okay, come back, we discuss, the BOM then changes its mind and says, you know what you're going to do? So you are going to say to your KCSE, Sawa, it's okay because you're already registered in this school. But what is going to happen is you will be staying outside the school and coming to the school in the morning.
Yes.
And we will get a guard to watch over you at where you're staying and bring you to school.
But you're not coming to stay.
But you are not going to stay in this school. Maybe the story does this story is short and very
an abridged version.
Yes. There must be a lot more that has happened between March and
I believe there has been. Yes. And also what is brought under scrutiny is must issues within a school, must they go to the courts? Are we saying that the board of management, the school administration, the PA were unable to resolve this thing in an amicable manner so that the parents, the school, the community, people who are happy with the outcomes, should this thing have ended up in court?
That's the thing. It shouldn't.
It shouldn't have.
Even the county education officer, the regional education officer,
TSC,
the ministry should have intervened.
Yes. Why did this matter have to end up in court? Because when you see such things, you know what's going to happen? The copycat syndrome will set in place. We are going to see many, many such cases which could have been resolved within the boundaries of the institution being taken to court.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And the real issue that has brought about this discussion is not given the highlight it should. We don't even understand what actually transpired. There's an activity, something took place. Why it transpired, what brought it about, and what other underlying problems there are in that community is not being mentioned. Why would 20 students focus on 3 students, only 3 students? Why?
Question.
Yep.
Anyway.
Or were there more?
My point, I think, has been made.
Yeah. It is a big one. Let me take you to Kericho. 8 Kericho County Road Department officials have been found guilty over an irregular award of 5.6 million shillings tender, and they've been slapped with hefty fines.
Hefty.
Yes.
The sentence was delivered by Kericho Chief Magistrate Evans Makori on behalf of Chief Magistrate Samuel Mukoh, who has since been transferred. Lillian Chepkoech, the Roads Department's inspector and the director of Jolink Logistics Company, through which she received 3.8 million, the sum paid out to her company for the construction of the road, was fined 9.6 million shillings or serve a 3-year jail term in default. The tender was for the construction of the Bai Kapsimotwet Kibara Road. Chepkoech's co-accused and directors of Jolink Logistics, John Kimtairo Tich and Japheth Kimngeno, were each fined 2 million shillings or in default served 2 years in jail. Peter Koskei, the Roads Department Chief Officer, was fined 1.3 million. Koskei has been found guilty of willfully failing to comply with the law relating to the procurement by awarding a contract to Jolink Logistics Limited. Umesikia? Jolink Logistics Limited. The person who's been fined a lot of money is Lillian Chepkoech.
Yes.
Who is a Roads Department inspector.
She works for the G-Men.
Yes.
Allah.
She is also the director of Jolink Logistics.
You gotta love this stuff, man. What?
And the roads engineer has been told, now surely even you. Yeah. Okay. You ask yourself, okay, really?
Honestly speaking.
The inspector of the roads has awarded her company the job.
Is that not the right way
Then
of
she will
ensuring
come
that
now,
you inspect properly?
Right.
Because
Then
now
you come and say, I think I did a pretty good job.
You
didn't
guarantee
I?
results.
Yeah.
It's your company, you're then inspecting it. The results are predetermined.
Yeah.
Yes.
I am supposed to do this. I have done it.
I've done it.
Then I come back
Satisfactory.
and check.
I'm satisfied that I've done this job very well.
Yes. Come back and check my work and say, I have done very well.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be interesting if she... Wouldn't it be interesting if she came and checked and said, actually, you know what, I think we may have missed a bump or 2 here. Not going to happen.
Maybe she did.
Just for posterity.
No. But she received 3.8 million shillings. And the company, the tender was 5.6 million. Lillian Chepkoech received 3.8 million shillings.
Then she paid other people small money.
Was that road built?
So now you're talking about a road.
Because I'm listening to you and you're reading out the monies.
The drama, but we're not hearing whether
the monies involved seems to be more than what the tender was worth.
You see, the road was built.
Okay.
With what?
That's the thing. What was supposed to be left here at the end of this project?
You know, the arithmetic isn't adding up.
We are not saying we went through a bush and charted a new path. Okay?
The road existed.
The road existed. So the road still exists.
Let's just leave it at that. Whether it's new improved road, whether it is road. It's road.
See, it's road you wanted. And the road company has come and done his work.
Road company. Road company.
What more do you want?
What more do you want? Keep it here for more conversations. Coming up in the next hour, we speak to somebody who went to Bomas and decided, choma voter's card. If I'm not going to be on the ballot, what's the point? Modioro Kirera will be with us here at 7 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Members of Parliament have approved Treasury's proposals to raise the debt ceiling to 10 trillion shillings. House Majority Leader Amos Kimunya said this will allow the National Treasury to borrow 846 billion shillings to plug the budget deficit in the fiscal year starting July 1st.
We needed to get to a situation where people can relate and say, what exactly is our debt limit? Rather than be pegged on is the net present value at rates that are being determined by different players. And without that standardization, then the committee did suggest that perhaps we need to go with what is known. We know the debt limit right now is 9 trillion. Let us look at what we need to do in the very interim to accommodate our financing requirements, to accommodate the issues that we have at hand, to sort out a limit that will accommodate the budget, that will accommodate the issues in this transitional phase.
MPs Kimani Ichung'wah, Owen Baya, Robert Bukose and John Kiarie opposed the motion saying Treasury will have a free hand to breach the new debt ceiling as long as it can explain to Parliament what caused excessive borrowing if changes to the law are approved. Now, the World Bank projects Kenya's economy will grow at a slower rate of 5.5% this year compared to 7.5% in 2021. According to the 25th edition of the World Bank report, the impact of the war in Ukraine is weighing on the global economic recovery from the pandemic. Domestically, a key risk to the outlook is the current drought, which is having a devastating effect on food security and livelihoods in affected parts of the country. The drought is also necessitating increased social spending on food assistance. The report further notes that the economy is vulnerable to the commodity price shocks resulting from the war, especially through fuel, fertilizer, wheat, and other food imports. Now, Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate Raila Odinga's remarks on Mitumba clothes have caused an uproar. While unveiling his manifesto, the ODM leader said Mitumba clothes worn by Kenyans could, in fact, have been worn by people who are already dead. Odinga said he would promote the local fabric industry by giving Mitumba importers first priority in marketing locally manufactured clothes. His sentiments, however, ignited mixed reactions from Kenyans and leaders from the Kenya Kwanza team. On his official Twitter page, Kenya Kwanza flag bearer Deputy President William Ruto critiqued Odinga's remarks, saying his trickle-down economic model was dangerous. Ruto said he would use technical and vocational education and training to assist the sector players grow from sewing, cottage to textile and leather industry if elected on August 9th. Speaking at a business forum, the Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate said his sentiments were misunderstood and taken out of context. He reaffirmed his respect for the Mitumba sector, noting that it had employed millions of Kenyans. Additionally, Odinga hit out at his opponents for taking advantage of the public uproar. And the Ministry of Education will start inspecting private schools across the country to ensure they have adequate facilities for junior secondary schools. These, as the first batch of grade 7 learners are expected to join the junior secondary schools under the competency-based curriculum program. Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha, speaking at Mwike Secondary School, where he had gone to launch CBC classrooms, said the exercise will aid in ensuring a seamless transition in devoid of any hurdles. CS Magoha further stated that the ministry has so far identified about 1,200 classrooms in private schools and will be expecting 5,000 before the January 2023 intake. Now, 1,816 people have died as a result of road crashes in the first 6 months of this year in the country. The National Transport and Safety Authority says the number of deaths is increasing, with Nairobi and Kiambu counties the top contributors to these grim statistics. NTSA Deputy Director for Road Safety Duncan Kibogong says 66% of the accidents took place between 4 p.m. and 10 p.m. and during the weekend. Additionally, the report disclosed that majority of road crash victims are aged between 24 and 34, with males accounting for 84% of total deaths. Kibogong spoke in Mombasa during the official opening of a conference on improving road transport safety that also drew representatives from the Kenyan National Highway Authority, the Urban Roads Authority, and others. And plans by the World Health Organization to establish a logistics hub in Nairobi are almost complete, with the groundbreaking set for later this month. A virtual meeting between Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe and WHO Regional Director Africa Dr. Matshidiso Moeti resolved to fast-track construction of the facility that will be equipped with emergency medical personnel, commodities and equipment to support Kenya and other countries in the region. Speaking during the meeting, the health CS said there was need for Kenya and the region to adequately prepare for the next pandemic, adding that the COVID-19 pandemic provided crucial lessons, especially for developing nations. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Langata Road this morning is where we see a lot of traffic, and we're going into the city. We're going to take some time to get out of this one. It's also a build up on Uhuru Highway getting out into the CBD and then through to Westlands. Speaking of which, not too bad on Wayaki Way, but we're seeing a lot of traffic coming in from Lavington out then towards James Gishuru, and it's going to spill over to Wayaki Way. Don't forget, the Red Hill Link Road will offer an escape route. Thika Superhighway has built up in terms of traffic. We're going past Outer Ring, out well into Kiambu County. Kiambu Road, Coffee Gardens is where the traffic is heaviest right now. It's coming in from Ridgeways, and that looks like it's going to get really messy really quickly. Juja Road, also quite a lot of traffic as you get into the city and then joining with what's happening on Moranga Road. And we are seeing that Jogo Road has piled up some as well. Traffic hour starts early today from all indications. Let's keep watch on what's happening. The weather patterns have changed, folks, so we're looking at really low visibility in certain areas. As looking out into Limuru, but also in Ruiru, out of the Thika Superhighway as well. So keep your lights on, keep your wits about. Let's see what happens in half an hour or so. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, talk to us there. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It is 7 minutes after 8. Good morning. No, it's the other way around.
Exactly. Try it. 8 minutes after?
7.
I thought so.
Yeah. Sounds and looks a little bit better.
That's what I was telling them.
Those guys?
Yeah.
So now they've told you, Eric.
It's 8 minutes after 7.
Good man.
Okay? It's the 8th day of April, 2022.
You've told yourselves?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we are aligned.
Good.
Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. We are live on SpiceFM. We're also live online on Facebook and on YouTube. C.T. Muga has the day's proverb from the French Tana River.
Country of Madagascar. Now, don't be like a shadow, a constant companion, but never a comrade.
Don't be like a shadow, a constant companion, but never a comrade. Doesn't help you anything.
But really, it doesn't even follow you that well.
Load.
At times it's longer than you. There are times you can't even see it. There are times it doesn't quite represent you, but it's always with you.
Can lift you up when you're down.
Yes, and if there's no light, you don't see it at all, and yet it exists. The moment there's light, then you see it. So,
bad thing, this one.
Interesting thing, this one.
Don't be like it.
Don't be like it.
Yeah. We have a guest in the studio. Muthiora Karriara was aspiring to be on the presidential ballot this year like he was in 2017. However, the IEBC told him, this time, Otoshi Mboga. Also, they told him. Muthiora, welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversation.
Thank you, Eric.
Welcome to the hot seats.
Jumbutuzi wafumbutula chebukamba kati alitukembeketa shombo koka ni Samba Tower.
Samba Tower kabiti Caesar. Get it?
Well, I always welcome the prospects of learning a new language. And clearly this introduction is good. Now, what on earth were you saying in plain English?
On the 6th of June, we had our date with destiny. We appeared before the national returning officer for this year's general election, Wafula Chebukati, to present our papers for registration as candidates. I was running for president, and unfortunately, our application was rejected. That's what I was trying to say. In a language as deep as the one you just introduced, I was floating. Just to remind you that we have a thing in this country where we do not have a problem excluding others. I hope you didn't feel excluded by me trying to reach out to those that are...
No. The way you went the Chambukita, Akakampukutu, and, now Akambunditi, fine. It's just that I didn't understand it. I listen to Lingala music and I have absolutely no idea what on earth they are singing.
But you dance.
I dance seriously. I listen to salsa. Whatever language they're using, I have no clue. But it makes, I like it. So
you enjoy it.
You'll especially like this one. Samba Tasa, tunatafumbu futa, electro rombosa, justice in BC. My main preoccupation at this time is to ensure that we have electoral justice
in the country.
Yes.
Muthiora, this is not the first time that you wanted to be on the ballot. In 2017, you were on the presidential ballot as a running mate, right?
Yes.
For those who don't know, would just tell them about 2017.
My journey as a presidential aspirant began in 2017. I was running for president. But the same thing that happened to me this time round happened in 2017. My application was rejected and no reason was given, but because I was determined to give an alternative choice to Kenyans, I found my way on the presidential ballot somehow because a candidate had been cleared who did not have all the requirements, but had been given time to get them. And since I had them, we came together and we beat the system back then. That's how I ended up on the ballot as a running mate in 2017.
Whose running mate were you?
Dr. Japheth Kavinga Kaluyu, a man I respect, a man that gave me a chance, someone that allowed Kenyans to see that there is a different way we can approach leadership.
How many votes did you garner in 2017?
Eric, that question would be wrong to ask at this time.
How many votes were declared in your favor in 2017?
Well, we hold, or rather I hold, that as the Supreme Court declared that election invalid, the results of the same cannot be admissible in a serious forum such as this. Because when votes have been stolen from other candidates, ours were not locked up in a barrack somewhere or in a vault. They also got tampered with. But we did finish strong. We ran a strong race. And for that matter, we believe we're serious contenders and offer an alternative leadership for Kenya.
So then introduce us to Muthiora Karriara. Who are you? Where do you come from? What do you do?
Muthiora Karriara is a passionate patriot of Kenya, born in Migori County, Isebania. I have had opportunity to be a leader from when I was as young as 12 when my dad passed away. I went on to take up responsibilities along the way because at some point, to ensure that academic programs at the University of Nairobi ran uninterrupted, I offered myself for student leadership and vied to join the student organization of Nairobi University. And after my second attempt, I was successful. It was at the same time that Professor George Magoha, the current Cabinet Secretary for Education, was also starting as the Vice Chancellor. And for the first time in a whole academic year, we did run programs at the University of Nairobi without a strike. We gave ourselves to the job. We got it done. But clearly the system had been in so much debt. After our 1-year tenure, things somehow fell back to almost how they were. And out of the frustration that having given it so much and then things did not quite work out, I thought maybe this is not something meant for me. So I went back into building myself. I was at the time at my prime as a soccer player. I have played soccer, I'm a goalkeeper. So I went back and helped my team. Back then, the name was World Hope. It's now City Stars. It plays in the Kenya Premier League. And I tried to push that dream to as far as I was able to. So later on, I would hang my boots under coach Jacob Gosmule at Tusker FC. And then I graduated, came out, hopeful that I would get a job. None was forthcoming. But because I'm one not to sit back, I saw an opportunity in garbage collection and pig rearing. So I got a space in Kawangware, talked to the owners of the land. They listed to me. We put up a structure where we would bring the garbage collected from Nairobi Hospital along that whole road all the way to the end of Agwingskodek, all the restaurants on that stretch. So we would collect their garbage, take it to Kawangware on hand cuts, sort it out, get pig's wheel, which would be feed for our pigs, and then recycle whatever else was there and forward whatever we didn't need to the official garbage site. So I did that until I had a chance in 2011 to play for Cooperative Bank in the Interbanks Championships. Remember, this was after I had hung my boots. But this was a corporate thing, so it did not require a lot of seriousness. And in the process, I helped the team get to the finals. And that's where Consolidated Bank, whom we were playing against in the finals, realized that I had potential. So they told me, there's no point in you being a mercenary on the other side. We can offer you a job since you're qualified. That's how my career in banking began.
So you actually now got a job.
Yes.
You also, of course, you must have joined the team as well.
Yes,
so
and
you became Cooperative Bank's goalkeeper, and also you got a job.
Yes, and during that first year after I joined Consolidated Bank, they were playing in the amateur league. It's called the Astral League. And we won it. And I won it amongst other accolades, but now as a banker. So that's how my corporate journey began. It built me, and I have never looked back. So whenever I get an opportunity, I give back to society. I engage with people. And fortunately, that's also where I came to realize that it doesn't matter how good a person you are in business if the system and environment in which you operate does not support your dream. Because at the bank, we interacted with lots of customers, and there's a level where when you arrive, if you're investing in the range of tens of millions, then government policy and who is in office really matters. So that's where I started to see the need of this dream I had left behind, because there is a ceiling that nobody talks about, that yes, below that level you can operate and freely do your things and think you're thriving until you reach that ceiling. And then you realize that you cannot do away with politics and leadership.
Okay. So, I mean, you realized that there was something missing. What made you say that then you were going to go from the place when you were operating within the corporate sector and then say, I wanted to be part of those who make the decisions? Or am I wrong to say that something happened then, to say that you needed to be the one who would step into that position and take up the mantle?
It happened after, like I said, my interaction with customers at the bank who would have these ideas about how to grow their business. But then, number one, there is the requirements for one to qualify for a loan facility. And once you even have the facility, when you go to the ground to do the business that you want to do, then there are the hurdles that have been erected by the environment, by the government, and then, of course, even the culture of the people. So I've always had this policy where if I'm in a space for more than 2 years and I'm not seeing my inputs turning out to be
impact,
yes, I review and I move on.
Okay.
Have you ever been part of, apart from the stint you had as a leader in the university, have you ever been in any leadership of, say, in a union, a SACCO?
Well, I was part of the Football Welfare Association of Kenya. Its formation, it's still in its fledgling stage, but that's as far as playing a key role in a union goes for me. I have been a leader in my community. We have the Nyumba Kumi initiative where I strongly feature and contribute. Besides that, after I finished my degree, I registered in the Chartered Financial Analyst program because my interest has always been in finance, and I've always wanted to be part of a body where I'm not just answerable to myself, but also to people in a profession, so together we can synergize. I hope.
Have you ever considered that perhaps you ought to have tried your political, or you ought to have started your political journey with other positions, electoral positions, like, say, Member of Parliament, maybe Senate, maybe MCA, maybe Governor, before launching for the presidency?
Yes, I have. And after giving it thoughts, the conclusion I arrived at every time, because to come out and run for president took a bit of time. I arrived at the conclusion that the only office, given our culture and the way things are set up, that offers the tools and instruments that would institute the socio-economic transformation that is required in Kenya is the office of president. In Kenya, we have a top-down system where, regardless of whatever great ideas you have, if you are at a lower level, your thoughts do not count for much because orders from above will always supersede whatever you think is the best course of action. And if you look at people who have tried that before, they start out when they are visionary, they mean well, but by the time the system is done with them, they are bitter. They are destroyed. They no longer hold that Project Kenya can be salvaged.
Okay.
So I know you're asking if I have the relevant experience.
I'm actually asking why it is that you did not pursue a path of testing the very things that you have, the very things you want to do, piloting them, seeing how they work within a community, and the positions that I mentioned, not in any order, would provide such an opportunity, and you would see if this can work at this level, then certainly there is the proof of concept enables me to consider that if I pursued a higher goal, it might work there. You say you went to university, you say you are interested in finance. If somebody told you that they had finished their Standard 8 class and they were pursuing a course in finance,
yes,
what would you advise them?
Well, of course, they have to be at peace with the decision they have made, first and foremost, because that way, then they'll be ready to do all the work that is required. And then, since this is an academic field, there is the way things are structured. A class 8 person would need to start at the very low level on that ladder. So maybe they would need to consider going back to school so they can have a Form 4 certificate. And if they do not pass well, then start at the KATC level and then move up the ladder. Now, fortunately for Kenya, in politics, our constitution does not place such a threshold. What it says is, if you have a degree, if you are a voter, you are qualified to run for president. And because I have those requirements checked, and because I believe, given the way things are, that Kenya does not have the luxury of time, the one place where people have not offered themselves competent people has been the office of the president. We have great people that have offered themselves for MCA, MP, senator positions, governor. But then you look at the presidency and you realize that it's a position that for a very long time has remained a mystery. People have shied away. So I thought if we can demystify that and it attracts more attention, more people, so it's not a preserve of a certain class because that class has let Kenya down since independence, then maybe the quality of leadership will improve. When we have a bigger pool, when you have more people to compare, then we have these ideas flying all over the place, and someday it will attract the right people and will make the right decision.
I definitely hear you. What you're saying, essentially, is that it is a place where anybody should be allowed to then attempt. I definitely see that. Do you feel, however, that more Kenyans needed to know about you as an individual who was going to throw themselves also into this pool of people who are attempting the seat? Not just who you are, but what expertise you have, what experience you have at the same time, and then what you are offering to Kenyans about what you would then be able to execute on the seat. Do you feel that more Kenyans needed to know who you are?
Yes, that is important. And I have made effort for Kenyans to know who I am through, for the last 5 years, an education program that we've been carrying out nationally to improve on the political education in our population. Like I said, I'm not new to Kenyans. When I played in the Premier League, we played in every important stadium in Kenya where people came to watch. And I started this when I was 18. So I've been here this long. Maybe then because I hadn't announced that I was running for president, but if we connect the dots backwards, you will see that I've been around. I have done things. It's just that they've not been thrown out there like for everyone else.
They haven't been amplified.
Yes. So yes, it's important for people to know who Muthiora Karriara is. And the fact that there is nothing negative about me out there having been around for so long is a good thing. But we must change our culture where most Kenyans have no problem with leaders whose history is tainted. So yes, it's important for them to know who I am, but it's also important for them to question why, even when they know a leader is not suitable, they still want them in those public offices.
Let me ask the question, since you brought it up. Are you saying that the public ought to expect perfect leaders?
Well, the public ought to place a high threshold for the people who hold public office.
And you feel right now it's not high enough?
Looking at the representation we have in our National Assembly, I will say it's not up there. We can do better. I'm not trying to blame the victim in this case because the system is skewed against them, but I will say some of our leaders have carried themselves dishonorably, and instead of punishing them, we have rewarded them.
You know, there are those who argue that part of the reason why we see the failures and the pitfalls in some of these leaders is because they have dared, the very thing you're doing, they dared to put their lives into public display. Because when you vie for a seat, a political seat, that's what you do.
Yes.
So people will see you, they will look at you through lenses that ordinarily an ordinary citizen would not be looked at. And that by virtue of being in that position and plying that trade, you will encounter things that will challenge that very, very character that you have in ways that you would never have anticipated. And there are those who also argue that what you then see as a manifestation of what you are calling or what you've pointed out to is the net result of someone, an individual offering themselves for a political position, getting it, and then now grappling with the reality of that particular position. So everything that we see is now the manifestation of that grappling with it. Now, why I asked the question I asked earlier on is, you want to vie for the highest seat in the land, which has a multiplicity of all these other problems that these leaders in these other positions have. Now, if you haven't been tested and tried in any other political position, what makes you think that you will be able to weather the storms that others seem to have encountered and fallen by the wayside when they've encountered them?
Well, unfortunately for position of president, no one gets to do an internship in that office. So your experience will be from other roles. And for me to have come as far as I have come, it means I have executed other roles elsewhere and done it well, because there is nothing to besmirch my record with that regard. Now, yes, it may be too late to wait to learn about my ability when I'm on the job, but I certainly can promise that what you see is what you get. A leader that has been trusted by the people should have a character that, as they say, is like Caesar's wife, beyond reproach. We may fall short sometimes, but then we need to take responsibility, and that's the one thing that our leaders are never ready to do. I am one person that would willingly step aside if I fell short of the standard that is required.
Let's take a break on that note. 27 minutes to 8. Kenya's biggest conversation is hosting Muthiora Karriera, who wanted to be on the ballot in this year's presidential election but was not cleared by the IEBC, was on the ballot in 2017 as a running mate, and now he's here to explain to us what happened, first of all, why he would like to be the president of the country, and what happened to his bid this particular time. With over 60 years of manufacturing premium sofa sets, Istiqbal is the right furniture store in Nairobi for your furniture needs, giving you a home full of innovation, style and elegance. Istiqbal stocks a wide range of products from sofa, TV units, coffee tables, dining sets, beds and mattresses, and they've got showrooms. They have showrooms on Mombasa Road, they have showrooms at Village Market, they have showrooms in Nakuru at the West Side Mall, and you can also shop online, we said it yesterday, www.istiqbalkenya.com. Can you spell Istiqbal, Muthiora, just by hearing me say Istiqbal?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
K-B-A-L. Istiqbal.
Very good.
Voila.
You get it. The spelling bee winner is right here. istiqbalkenya.com. And if you go to istiqbalkenya.com, you can actually shop around for good furniture. If you have you see some good furniture and you hold a KCB, an APSA or a DTB account, you can purchase and then lipa pole pole. That is also possible. Let's take a quick break, take a look at the weather and traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Hey, have you heard about Mbuzi24.com?
Mbuzi what? No! What is it?
Mbuzi24.com delivers farm fresh products such as meat, cheese, eggs, herbs, and more straight to your door. Fresh and reasonably priced. And imagine, it's free delivery.
Mbuzi24.com. Farm fresh food. Order now and get free delivery in Nairobi. Goat meat only 545 Kenya shillings per kilogram.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 15, highs of 23. We'll come back to those of 15, and it's 15 in Nakuru, highs of 23. 22 will be the high in a partly cloudy Nyeri at 14. The rain showers still coming down in Eldoret at 13, highs of 20 today. Mostly sunny conditions now in Mombasa, highs of 29 and lows of 24. And the rain keeps coming down in Malindi at 22. It'll go to highs of 29. It's 19 and rainy in Kisumu, highs of 25 and lows of 18. And the rain is still coming at 19 in Kakamega, with highs of 23 and lows of 16. It's also raining in Kampala at 19, highs of 24 and lows of 18, while we're looking at sunny conditions in Dar es Salaam at 23. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 22. It's 7 degrees and clear in Johannesburg, highs of 19 and lows of 5, while Lagos is clear at 27, highs of 30 and lows of 25. New York is 22 degrees and clear Tuesday night. We'll see highs of 32 and lows of 21.
Chill Spice.
Still continues in most parts of the city this morning. Visibility is a bit low because clouds are just that, low. But let's look through industrial area. Lunga and Jogo Road is what we'll see the most of traffic from that area right now. And we're also looking at heavy traffic on Langata Road coming out into the city. The Thika Superhighway ebbing and flowing with traffic. We're looking at just past Allsops now. Coming in through to the Pangani Underpass is where you'll see it this morning, as well as Kiambu Road, which is now in and outbound bumper-to-bumper traffic. Coming out of Westlands, a bit of a headache here and there. Not to forget, you can use the Redhead Link Road. Let's look at what happens in half an hour or so. Let's talk on SpiceFM, KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
It's 23 minutes to 8. The conversation continues. We are hosting
done right. 94.4
for this 2022 general election until Monday, when he faced the IEBC and was not cleared. What happened at the IEBC on Monday?
We were informed that we did not have sufficient supporters for our bid.
Mm-hmm.
When we were asked to bring our lists of supporters, the signatures plus the ID copies, we beat the deadline. That was on the 25th of May. We brought our bundles, left them with the IEBC. They did the checklists, went into our data and said we had met the preliminary requirements.
Mm-hmm.
So later on, of course, they would go on to whittle the long list, and we happened to be amongst the 18 that made the cut.
Mm.
So we were invited to go for the final presidential registration, and that was happening on the 6th.
Mm.
That's when they pulled out the shocker that in the documents we had presented, we had a shortage of 5 counties.
Mm.
The regulation requires that for you to be nominated to run for president, you must have at least 2,000 signatures from a majority of the counties.
Mm.
We presented over 50,000 signatures from 24 counties, the ones that we thought we were ready with as we sorted out the rest.
Okay.
So they say they went through our documents and found that 5 of the 24 did not meet the threshold.
So there were there were 5 counties that did not have 2,000 signatures or voters from those counties. Had you counter-checked that bit?
Yes,
because that's also the other question that many are asking. When you bring 2,000 signatures from a certain county, say Nairobi, have you counter-checked to ensure that A, the people who are signing and giving you their ID copies are actually registered voters in that county?
Eric, I have said one person that takes responsibility. Our data, the one they call in soft copy, checked out that we had over 2,000 for each of the 24 that we handed in. Now, as for the part of the signatures, I had a team across the country that was doing these on my behalf. People may have played monkey business with that. The serialization of the ID copies with the hard copy data may not have been perfect. In fact, perhaps some ID copies were omitted. So maybe as they went through the process, they realized that we had not met the threshold. Problem is, when they were doing this, there was no other independent body to verify that what they were doing was actually
what they said they were doing.
Yes. Because on that basis, someone can easily pluck a whole bunch of your documents and then you do not meet the threshold. So maybe that's something that needs to be looked into.
Do you know which particular specific counties of the ones that you presented, do you know which ones did not meet the threshold? Did IEBC inform you?
I was disappointed by how they did it because it appears they had a decision maybe a week before. The best thing they would have done is once they realize that you have not met the threshold and you still haven't appeared, they should have informed us in advance that the following counties did not meet the threshold. Can you do something about that? But Eric, I'm one person that looks ahead. I anticipated such a problem. And so what we did was we went back to the other counties we had not submitted and perfected the data to the last ID copy. So when we show up and they say you do not have this, we tell them, no problem.
Here is a substitute.
We had not presented Mandera County. Here is Mandera County. So when the chairman told us that we had 5 counties that we had not met the threshold, we asked if he could give us time like he had given other aspirants who came before us. It was at around 10 minutes past 3. He looked at his watch and he said, Mudiora, I will give you up to 3:30.
Wow. 20 minutes.
You most probably saw clips of Mudiora literally running for president at Bombers. That was us chasing his guys who were supposed to verify the documents we had brought.
And did you, if I can just, did you, because you know why it may seem as though we're harping on the nitty gritty, but I think it is highly relevant because if we talk about moving forward and going beyond, then the questions then ought to be asked about the processes through which this verification is happening, right?
Yeah.
So they had given you some extra time. And what you're telling us is that within that time, you made sure that you got everything to the letter,
yes,
based on what they asked.
Yes.
So are we saying that on your returning with now the updated material and information, they declined to review it?
They received the data. It took like 5 minutes. And then the final report was given.
Okay, let's get something straight first. The first time you submitted your bundles of 48, how many? 24 counties.
Yeah, over 50,000 signatures.
Were you given any feedback that none of them has met the threshold?
Yeah, we were given feedback.
That
This is the document.
What does it say?
It says At that point,
we have received 24 bundles.
yes, we have checked that we have 2,000 for each of the 24.
Okay.
You're cleared to proceed to the next stage.
Okay.
Yes.
And the next stage would be appear before the returning officer.
Yes.
Which means that this is the stage where if there was any anomaly with your documents, this is the stage you'd have been told.
Yes.
And you were not told that.
No.
Okay.
How long does this inspection process take before they determine whether you qualify or not?
Well, when we presented our documents, we arrived at around 3. We got served at 25 minutes past 7.
Because that's what it says on this paper. 7:25 p.m. is when they received 25 booklets, and they received soft records or soft files of 24 in number, and it's actually signed and received by the...
At what time does it indicate that?
7:25 p.m.
Evening. But we've been told by the candidate that
he arrived earlier at 3,
Yeah.
but he was served at 7:25.
the documents were taken then.
Yes, they were received at 7:25, so
Okay.
it's been there for about 5
Yes,
hours.
after the verification process and everything.
So they first of all count how many do you have, 24 signed forms, blah, blah, blah. So at 7:25 is when you're called back and told, all right, we've checked. What you've brought meets the requirements.
I could actually take you through the process. So when you're looking for nomination signatures, you have a form. It's a statutory form. So you go to a voter. No, let me say a Kenyan. The first question you ask is, are you a registered voter? They say yes. Very good. I'm running for president. Would you like to nominate me on the basis of ABCD? And they say yes. So you give them the form and ask them to give you their ID. So they transfer their name, county, constituency, and then sign.
Okay.
So for our case, because we wanted to maximize, we would take a picture of the ID.
Okay.
At close of business, we would go and print these IDs. So when you show up at Bombers, you have the hard copy
Of
with the
form.
names and the
Yes.
signatures.
Yes.
And then you've transferred the same data on an Excel sheet.
Okay.
So when the tally gets to 2,000, you say that county is done and dusted. So when you go to Bombers, you have 24. I had 24 bundles. So what they would do is first they count. How many counties? 24. We will receive this. If you have less than 24, like you've heard them say,
They don't receive it.
they
That
won't
is-
receive it. So you'll not proceed to the... No, they will still receive, but not shortlist you to proceed with the process.
Okay.
So they checked, and they do it randomly. They go to the form, they pick a name, they check if it's on the Excel. And then if it's there, it passes the test. They do that for a number of entries.
Okay.
That's why it takes long.
Okay.
So that was the initial process. We passed that. And then they were left with the documents, went through them. And that's when they now produced the final result that you did not pass the test.
Okay.
So when we showed up, since we had anticipated such an occurrence, having seen what others have gone through, we actually had 8 counties with us, just waiting
Extra.
to extinguish that fire.
Yes, extra.
Yes.
So this is what you're saying then, that it's not possible within the time that you then were told bring more
Yes.
and the time that you got the response.
Yes.
It would not have been possible for them to review that and either confirm or deny the additional numbers that you had.
Correct.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to stick on this because, I do think that it is important. The reasons that you were given, which when you received that letter that we've seen others, the reasons that you were given as to why then you would not be certified for nomination, did they make sense to you?
They do not. They do not. And especially because our constitution is very clear as to the nomination process. it says you need to get nominated by 2,000 people from a majority of the counties. All these other formalities are additional things we've put there. So the commission is now concerning itself with clerical tasks to eliminate aspirants instead of fidelity to the law and constitution.
Is it not in any piece of legislation, the issue of ID copies?
Now, I would say that is complementary because our constitution is supreme. It says 2,000 signatures.
Yeah, but legislation is enacted to support and give life to the constitution.
But
so when the Elections Act says that you shall have the same things, 2,000 nominators from a majority of the counties, and then it goes further to say, those 2,000, how shall we identify them? We shall identify them by A, their IDs, and 2, by having physical copy of the ID. Is there anything wrong with that? Is it unconstitutional?
Eric, when a law serves to discriminate, that law is not worth the paper it's written on. The spirit is wrong. I have told you that we would have to print the copies. So if I cannot afford to print an ID copy, then I should not dream that I can run for office. That's discriminatory. So it's an impediment that has been put there deliberately to limit those that would wish to offer themselves up for office.
Why would you be unable to photocopy an ID?
Because
lack of technology or what?
Now, shock on you, Eric. In this very modern era where we've embraced technology, we had even suggested to the commission to allow for us to submit electronic copies of the IDs. And they said no. So you tell me we are in an era where we do not want to cut trees. In fact, we are saying we want to run a green economy, and yet somehow we cannot. I mean,
you know, the argument, I hear what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense. But you see, discrimination, if we were to use that term in its most negative sense, means a deliberate attempt or a deliberate position to disadvantage others. But look at our examination system, it's discriminatory.
Yes.
If you don't pass beyond this, you don't move to the next stage. And at every stage, if you don't pass this, you don't move to the next. If you don't get a degree with this segmentation, you cannot do a master's. It's always this. It isn't discriminatory in the most negative way all the time. It's just that when you put issues and people on a weighing scale, the fact that you have a weighing scale, one could argue, is also discriminatory. But then it actually seems to negate the very concept of diversification that is represented with the human race. We are different.
That's true.
Yes.
Yes. And our constitution has served to address that matter.
Yes.
Which is why I insist we should always revert back to the letter and spirit of our constitution.
So you're saying their interpretation of it is faulty?
It is faulty. And that's why we are not giving up on the process. We must deliver electoral justice in Kenya. Because if indeed we are to redeem ourselves of these Achilles of corruption, then we cannot go through a process that from the very beginning is flawed. Otherwise, we'll always produce results that will not help to make this nation great.
There's a document you showed us where they wrote down the reasons why it is you were disqualified.
Yes.
And you said there were two. The first time when they first communicated to you.
Yes.
I want to
you could actually call it my report form.
Yes, this report form.
Yes.
Read the first term report form, then the second term.
Yes.
Term one.
The conclusion was application for registration rejected due to, number one, insufficient supporters. Number two, insufficient identification documents to support the list of supporters. Number three, running mate electoral code of conduct not provided, signed by the IEBC chair, Wafula Chebukati.
All right. And then why did you get a second term report?
Because the terms they had said they had used to reject our application were reviewed during our resubmission.
Okay.
So after reviewing, now they gave just one reason. And my question has been, why were they in a hurry to dismiss us? The ideal situation would have been, here we are. Do you have all this before we start this process?
Okay. What was the second reason?
Well, now the second report, which now holds, is that application resubmitted and found invalid as to supporters short. The application for registration is invalid.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Did they explain that to you?
Supporters short.
Yes.
You still did not meet the supporters threshold. That's what they say.
That's what it says here.
Okay.
And there was no time.
So they didn't have time to re-verify the extra counties that you brought in?
No, they did not.
And that was on them, not you.
Not me. People were given a week. Others were given 2 days.
You were given?
20 minutes.
You came on the final day, and so they claim that we have to finish today.
Yes. And that's the problem we have with this commission. That because we say we do not have anyone else to run our elections, we must be confident in the work they are doing. I've been a believer of that narrative, but now I'm not. I'm sorry. If we expect proper results, the process has to be right. So I will no longer sit back and wait for garbage to be produced out of garbage when I can change the input. Let us focus on changing the input.
So the issue here mainly is process. And the fact that IEBC had set 6th to be the final date, that by the end of the 6th, they must have the final list of candidates, then that also now left you with no time.
Yes.
That was a disadvantage to you, to the 3 candidates who appeared on the day.
And do not look at just us. Look at the thousands of Kenyans
who
in support of our candidature.
Yep.
Look at the Kenyan dream. Eric, it's IEBC. It's supposed to be independent.
Yep.
In their independent execution of their duties, them being lawyers, or at least majority of them having that kind of a background.
The chairman certainly is a lawyer.
Yes. It should be obvious to them that you cannot hide behind words. You cannot say that since you're coming on the last day, you will not have as much time as others have had to perfect their documents.
You'd have even given it an extra day, which you would have even said, I mean, from what you're saying, you would have added a couple of days to this thing. Who's to say that, the 6th or the 6th of June or the 5th of June was cast in stone? If you're seeing that more of this is coming in, if you had agreed and given others some 48 hours to get their ducks in a row, why not extend the date by a couple of days? Why not do that?
That has been our concern. But unfortunately, what they do is they mumble up the legal stuff. They quote the law without hesitation. I hope you saw how they threw an essay at the concerns that have been raised by our other competitors. When in fact the problems are still not addressed. So we're saying something has to give.
What are you doing next in 30 seconds? What are your next steps?
Well, at the moment, my biggest concern is to ensure that what can be changed before the 9th of August is changed. Number one, the Commission's attitude has been contemptuous. They hold this position in trust on behalf of the Kenyan people. Our electoral process is so sensitive and important that we cannot afford to miss a step. I'm talking to partners, And in fact, one of my mentors, Professor Wajakoya, called me because he thought that my statement that maybe the ballot is not the way to bring the change we need to see in Kenya needs to be reviewed further. Maybe there is still another way. So
to institute change.
Yes, so I'm talking to other like-minded people, and soon we'll be coming out with a final position as to how we are going to approach this. But Muthiora Karriara is not offering himself up for any elective position going forward until we have entrenched electoral justice in Kenya.
Muthiora, thank you very much, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Muthiora Karriara was a presidential aspirant for this election, was not cleared by the IEBC. A very good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life. The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is News Round Dennis. The government of Kenya will not issue title deeds in areas around disputed boundaries in the eastern and northeastern part of the country. It has also suspended the creation of new administrative units in the two regions until after the August 9th general elections. Speaking after chairing a meeting of security teams of Isiolo and Meru counties, Interior CS Fred Matiang'i said the directive will affect sub-counties, locations and sub-locations in the two regions. This, Matiang'i said, will allow for more consultations with leaders and the general public in the areas experiencing boundary disputes and conflicts. The CS said that the creation of new units is intended to deliver government services closer to citizens, but the process had been hijacked by leaders for political gains and partisan agenda. Now, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party Deputy President candidate Martha Karua has been endorsed by over 500,000 women from the Mandalaya Wanawake Coast Region chapter. Karua, who graced the 70th anniversary of Women's Empowerment Movement alongside Gender Affairs Cabinet Secretary Margaret Kobia, was named an honorary member of the Women Movement, which she lauded for its role in nurturing women leaders across the nation, while admitting that the August general election presents Kenyans with the opportunity to elect new leaders into office. Karua urged Kenyans to cast their votes wisely and elect progressive leaders who will better the affairs of the country at all levels. And the United Democratic Alliance has written to the National Intelligence Services pertaining to an alleged report insinuating that Azimio la Umoja One Kenya presidential candidate Raila Odinga is the clear favorite to clinch the country's top seat at the August polls. The alleged report came to light last week after Interior Principal Secretary Karanja Kibisho used its so-called findings to claim that Odinga will record a first-round victory in the presidential race by convincingly garnering 60% of the votes. UDA, in a letter by lawyer Elias Mutuma, questioned NIS mandate to ensure that no actor within the public or private sector leverages the security agency's resources to undermine the ongoing pursuit of a free and fair electoral process. And former Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko now says he is headed to the Supreme Court to file an appeal against the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission following its decision to deny him clearance in the race for the Mombasa County top seat. Sonko, for the better part of yesterday, refused to leave the IEBC premises and engage the commission in a standoff demanding a clearance certificate. According to his lawyers, the commission cited two issues: academic requirements and his previous impeachment as the reasons of barring him from the race. They have explained that the ex-governor was able to provide the required documentation, but the returning officer maintained that the three-judge bench that ruled on Sonko's case had not issued any clearance orders to IEBC to facilitate a go-ahead. And 8 officers attached to the Department of Roads at the Kericho County Government have been slapped with a total fine of 15.8 million shillings after they were found guilty of irregularly awarding a 5.6 million shillings tender. The 8, Lillian Chepkoech, John Kimutai Rutich, Javed Kimngeno, Peter Kosgei, Josh Chirchir, Stanley Ruto, Charles Maboy, and Arun Cheruiyot were arraigned in court facing various charges in 2020. The tender was for the construction of the Kapsi Motwet Kibara Road in Belgut constituency. And an elephant is given birth to twins at the Abadan National Park, an extremely rare occurrence. This brings to 3 the number of known sets of twins in the country. The news was broken by the Kenya Wildlife Services, which described the occurrence as extremely rare. Another was reported at the Samburu National Reserve in January, while another had given birth to twins in 2006, though they died shortly after, in what scientists blame on insufficient milk in elephants. Female elephants are known to give birth every 4 years, in pregnancies lasting 22 months. And the national women's volleyball team head coach Paul Bitok named his provisional squad set to travel to Brazil for a 2-month-long camp ahead of the World Championships set for September 23rd to October 15th in Netherlands and Poland. Bitok is handling the team alongside 4 Brazilian coaches led by Luzoma de Moura, who have been seconded to Kenya by the International Volleyball Federation as part of the Volleyball Empowerment Program in Sao Paulo. The seasoned coach injected fresh blood in the 20-member squad by giving first call-ups to 6 rookies led by KCB trio Magdalene Mwende, Belinda Baraza and Faith Imodia. Kenya Prisons outside hitter Meldine Sunday, KDF setter Veronica Kibalat and libero Veronica Makoha. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, a few minutes after 8 o'clock, traffic hour still doing the thing and still doing the rounds. We're looking at the Thika Superhighway coming into the city and quite some traffic there. However, it's just past that Utali drift. Before that, I think we're getting out of the worst of it. Coming off James Gishuru, looking into Westlands, also that not looking too bad. Apart from that, doesn't look too bad around most parts of the city. Okay, let's keep an eye on things as we get through to 8 o'clock, likely to pick up a little bit after this. And then let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation
7
Room,
minutes after 8.
the only way to start your day.
The other time it was 8 after 7. It's now 8 o'clock, my friend.
7 minutes after 8 on the 8th day of April 2022. Welcome to the third hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM. We are also live on KTN Home. We are online on YouTube and Facebook. We have a new guest in the studio, the governor of Machakos County. Before we welcome him to the show, let's hear the Proverbs of Madagascar.
Yes. The first proverb from Madagascar. Don't be like a shadow, a constant companion, but never a comrade.
Don't be like a shadow, a constant companion, but never a comrade.
Yes.
This shadow, when you are tired with the load you're carrying, will never tell you, let nikusaidie.
No.
Shika pande.
No.
Whatever you're going through, it'll just be there.
Sometimes it's there, but it's invisible, especially where there's no light. And depending on the position of the sun, it will be directly under you. And it will be there.
What do you call the people from Madagascar?
The people.
Malagasy.
Malagasy or Malagasians?
Malagasy.
It's the Malagasy. So what do you think the Malagasy had in mind when they came up with this proverb? Walikuwa wanachoma nani?
You know, I wouldn't be able to answer that question comprehensively. Sijui, as they say, who walikuwa nachoma nani. But what I do know is this. Proverbs emanate from keen observations of everyday life and the relation that we have either with the environment that we live in or with other people. Yes. But it's a very compressed documentation of that observation.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Alfred Mutua.
Yes.
Welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversation.
Asante sana. I'm very, very happy to be here, and I want to say salamu nyingi sana to your listeners and viewers from across the country and the international spectrum. And always happy to be here among great thinkers and great people who know how to chambua mambo. And today I tried to get a colored shirt to match him, you know, because Muga here always wears very colorful outfits. So nikasema utaona leo nimekushinda. Leo kwa adifiki.
I must say roses are red, violets are blue.
Well done.
All mine it's maroonish with a touch of purple, which is the colors of my party, Maendeleo Chap Chap.
You're in good company. These fellas know nothing about color.
I'm telling you, yeah. But I'm also happy to be here because I see you've started with the right proverb to set the tone or the voice, and I can read between the lines, and I know you're saying that Raila is a shadow of what he used to be, and he's a project, so he's you can't see the shadow at times, you see something else, but we know tunapata, we know what you're talking about.
You know, you're such a politician.
No, I'm just a communicator.
Yeah. Dr. Alfred Mutua, there's a promo that we play here. One of the times that you came to the show, and you were talking about, you know, the challenges of governance.
Yes.
And the challenges of governing a country such as Kenya.
Yes.
And you said, you know, you are there, you've been given the mandate to serve people a meal. So you're there, you're trying to serve a meal, and instead of the chef being in the kitchen helping you cook, the sous chef is out there. He is the one who's katakata in kuni or doing all these other things, you know? So the sous chef at that particular point, you are referring to the deputy president. And saying the deputy president should be supporting his head chef to prepare the meal for the people. And now you're on that side.
No, I think, you know, after a while, you realize that the problem was that the sous chef realized that the chef was actually poisoning the people and was trying to get the people to go against the food that was coming from the kitchen, hence they are being poisoned. So later on you realize, wait a minute, you know, we've been thinking this guy is not very serious with cooking, but it's because the one in charge of the menu is actually trying to give diabetes and all the other funny diseases to the people, and is trying to urge the people away from that spectrum. But, you know, politics is, I can call it a game of interest. It's about political interest. It's about development interest. For people like myself, it's all about where are we going as a country, and where are we coming from, and what is the best for this. And if you ask me the right questions, I'll give you the right answers.
Why do you then present the position that you're different from other politicians who do not, as you say, participate in this sport with their interests at the fore?
No, I'm not saying I don't participate with my interests at fore. My interests are at the fore, definitely, because I'm human. But my intentions are a bit different, I think, from the traditional, maybe so-called African politician, quote unquote.
How is that?
You see, I went into politics as a means to an end. I didn't go to it just because I wanted to be in politics. I don't like politics per se. I'm more comfortable engaging in processes of development. But in the setup of governance all over the world, it's in politics that you get the power to actually carry out what you need to carry out. But the problem with politics in Kenya is that there's a lot of deception, and there's a lot of self-interest. Not self-interest for you and your community, but personal self-interest about your own, you know, and your own family's interest, not the interest of the other. And that bothers me a lot. Because you sit down with these gentlemen, you sit down with these ladies, and you find at the end of the day it's all about how they are conniving for themselves, not conniving for the rest of us. Whereas maybe in politics in other countries, as people are thinking about self-interest, they think about their own self-interest and the community. Let me give you an example. If you want to know a corrupt country, if you want to know a country that is poor yet rich, is a country where you'll go and find a very big mansion surrounded by roads that are dilapidated. So this guy will build a big mansion for himself and his family and his friends, but because the roads around are also helping the neighbors, he'll never fix them. He'll never think about giving to the community. So that value, we call community value, is not there in a lot of the African nations. People will take care of themselves, instead of dealing with crime, they'll build bigger fences. They'll hire more security guards. Instead of fixing the potholes, they'll buy bigger cars with better suspension. So I think that's a difference, because there are others with self-interest. Like I lived in the US for a long time, lived in Australia. Yes, a politician has self-interest. They want to acquire power. They want to be in power, But they're also concerned that the neighborhood they live in, that the school their kids go to, that the schools their neighbors' kids go to, that the water that people drink around them is safe. You know what I mean? So there is more of a community value. I don't know whether you're getting me.
I'm getting
but there are different mentality in politics, especially in the developed nations, whereby you say, yes, it's good for me, but it's better when we are all the same,
I understand. I can hear what you're saying, but I think what confuses me and what may confuse others as well is that when we look at ideology, whether it's political ideology or otherwise, is that it is fundamental. It is inherent. It doesn't change between today and tomorrow. And that those who practice it believe it. They practice it as a result of an intimate, inherent belief. And so then it is difficult for you to be there today and then be on a totally different ideology tomorrow. So then the question would be then for you, Dr. Mutua, then why did you, or how then were you able to change? Or what was the thing that then made you move from one point to the next, if indeed that fundamental ideology was yours, these things that you're talking about, provision, social development, etc., if you believed in them, how were then you able to make a switch?
I've not made a switch, actually. I've just been consistent with my beliefs. The reason I moved is because I realized I was in a house that was not keeping to my fundamental beliefs and ideologies. So I have not done a spin. I have not flipped. What I've done is I've changed alliances and gone to the house that I believe will be better off, not for myself only, but more so for the people of this country. Let me answer the question that a lot of people have been asking me. Why did you move from Azimio? And it's good for me to give a background for people to understand that this was a very, very difficult decision for me to make. More so because I'm very consistent in my politics and my policies. I stood by Mwai Kibaki for all those years. I supported Mwai Kibaki. When Uhuru came, I supported Uhuru. During my second term, running for my second term, they said, Mutua, why don't you support Kalonzo and others? Because others will be finished. NASA will finish you. They came to Machakos, they said, NASA. I NASA'd them. I went back because of the work that I had done for the people. People did not vote for me because of, the shape of my face. They voted for me because of the works that I had done. But I kept to my stand. So when President Uhuru Kenyatta called me and told me, we are forming this movement called Azimio. It was this movement called Azimio, and it's a good place. And we are thinking that you have been supporting us in Jubilee for a long time. You've been standing with us. You should come on board. I actually even went and made part of his team. I thought, okay, let me be consistent. This is the house that I've been into. But then I started seeing cracks in this house. And I quickly realized this is not in keeping with what my expectations are. This is a totally different, spectrum. It's like you go to a church and you're expecting there to be a priest, and you're expecting there to be a pastor, or you go to a mosque and you're expecting to be imam, and you're talking about Allah, you're talking about Jesus Christ, and then halfway in there you realize, no, you've gone to a witch doctor's den. They are doing things that are not really in keeping with the faith that you believe in, and yet you entered there thinking you're getting to the right place. Let me fafanua. You see, things started falling apart with the so-called coalition agreement. you spoke very well when you talked about the innate beliefs, and that is why in the US, when they take you before the Senate or the Congress to be confirmed, they even dig back, if you are going for a Supreme Court judge, to the articles you wrote when you were in high school. Because you don't change. If you're a communist then, if you believed in bashing people, if, you know what I mean? If you believe that women should be beaten up at that time, you have not changed. You know, those things, believe, you know, they kind of stay with you, you know? And so we went into Azimio and we had a few meetings and we were told, okay, we are forming a coalition. Not a coalition party, a coalition. A party and a coalition are two different things.
Right.
You know, we're forming a coalition. And so we're told, bring your delegates. And we brought our delegates to Kenya International Conference, Kenyatta International Conference Center. And these delegates from Maendeleo, Chap, Jubilee, all these 29 parties who are supporting Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga.
Yep.
When we were at KICC, we were told, bring your delegates by 9 in the morning. We'll start the meeting at 10. 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock, nothing has started. Uhuru Kenyatta is missing in action. Raila Odinga is missing in action. We were told they are holed up at State House, first in Serena, then State House. They are going through the coalition agreement with Gideon Moi and Mheshimiwa Kalonzo Musyoka and a few others. We said, oh, wait a minute, why can't we be in that group? If you're going through a coalition agreement for a coalition for all of us, shouldn't we be at that table?
We should all participate.
We should all participate, you know? Then we were told, no, don't worry, we'll come and brief you. You know?
Okay.
And then we got phone calls from Raila telling us there are a few things that Kalonzo is pushing, like Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance. We have to make sure we shoot it down at the plenary. So we'll have a plenary. You know, so, you know, you're working, but we're also being told to Kija also play this game.
Play this game.
Yeah, because this person has come last minute because he was not supporting us and he's neither here nor there. We can't trust him and everything. Eventually, Raila showed up a bit late. People have been waiting. I think it was about 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon. Since morning, 9 o'clock. Watu wametoka Kapenguria, wengine wametoka Emali, wengine wametoka Lunga. You know, people have come over the different parties. You know, Kingi brought his people, everybody. And then Raila told us, we've looked at the coalition and we're going to call it One Kenya Coalition, blah, blah, One Kenya Alliance. Yeah, it's okay, we've agreed. And then he said it's going to have 6 principles. It's going to have 2 people from ODM, 2 people from Jubilee, and 2 people from Wiper or Okoh. Then he said, wait a minute, but those are three parties. What about the rest of us? You know, we are not even included in the leadership.
Who are the rest at this point?
The rest are myself, Muungano, NAC, the party for Keretu Murungi, PNU, quite a number of small political parties.
Okay.
But when you put them together, they control nearly 40% of, you know, elected members. And Raila told me, don't worry, everything has been taken care of. Before they came, I had been appointed as a spokesperson for the members of the small groups of the smaller parties. And we're not that small because I have 4 parliamentary members under my law chap. I have 40 MCAs. So, you know, I have elected members serving and voting in the House. Raila, we told him, no, that can't hold. So we agreed we're going to add 2 more people to represent the other parties. So we'll choose the 2 to sit there, we'll amend. But then we said, I remember Keretu Murungi said, how can we adopt a document that we have not seen? And we said, no, we agreed that we have to look at that document before we go to the plenary.
Okay.
Then President Uhuru Kenyatta came in. He came in accompanied by Gideon Moi, Kalonzo Musyoka, and a few other people. And they didn't want any amendments. So when I started raising these concerns, President Uhuru Kenyatta cut me off, said, no, stop. Then people said, no, we appointed Mutu as a spokesperson. So I raised the concern about adding 2 people. Kalonzo was against it. And then Gideon Moi said, it's okay, it's actually democracy. So that was adopted. We'll have more people and everything. Then we said, because it's not a big document, when we go to the plenary, let it be read phrase by phrase. Then we adopt it.
To everybody.
To everybody. Everybody. You say, number 1, party. Number 2, it's something. Number 3. So it's read. It's not a big document. We've been here since morning, even if it takes 2 hours. So clause by clause, all in favor say aye, amendments on the floor. Then we all own it. Then it is ours. That is real democracy. Because we don't have time to go through it, because we have a big rally waiting at Jacaranda Gardens in Nairobi, let's do it that way. So we go in. That's where now Ukora bit started. That's where now I'm calling it Azimio la Ukora, not Azimio la Umoja. So we go there and we sit down. Otiendo Molo, Honorable Otiendo Molo, stands up and he says, first point, presidential candidate for Azimio. It's not Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance, just Azimio. Somebody proposed Raila Odinga. Second, Raila Odinga. All in favor? Aye. Raila Odinga became the presidential candidate.
Okay.
Of the coalition.
Okay.
Not coalition party. Coalition.
Okay.
Okay. And then now we wait for the second phrase. Second line. Mheshimiwa Kanini Kega stands up and says, sasa twende tuweke sahi. We look at each other. What are we signing? So twende ODM, Secretary General, Waipa, Manilo Chap, Jubilee, go and sign. So I ask around what is going on. Then I'm told, don't worry, we are trying to fix Kalonzo because it's a bit slippery. Want to finish this thing. He signs. No, that's exactly what I was told. He signs so that when he's in, don't worry, by this you'll get all the documents and we'll amend them anyway with time.
Okay.
So, when you're told that by your bosses, you think, okay, these people know what they're doing. They mean well, We
Plus
need
it's Kalonzo
it's Kalonzo. We are trying to fix Kalonzo.
That's all right.
We are trying to fix Kalonzo in here. Watch aingie kwanza and then you deal with him. We want him to say Raila tosha.
Okay.
When my Secretary General goes to sign, he texts me, he said, wait a minute. He calls me, actually pick the phone. He says, there's nothing here. There's no document. We've only been given a piece of paper with a name, Manilo Chap, to sign on top. There's no attached document. And he's a lawyer. It's called Wakili Ndamomati. He's running for senator of Kitui. He said, how can we sign a document that we've not seen? Kingi calls me, says, this is what is going on here? And then we confer with a few others. And then my Secretary General tells me it's okay anyway, because a document is not very binding unless it's got other attachments and you sign on every page. So I tell him, just go ahead as a mark of good faith. You always give them benefit of the doubt.
You're the spokesperson of these other smaller parties.
Yes.
So, Kiraitu Murongi's party is represented. He's a seasoned lawyer. He tells the Secretary General, go ahead and sign.
No, you see, we've been hijacked.
Muungano party,
we've been
represented
hijacked.
by Professor Kibwana,
Yeah.
and also a very seasoned lawyer, tells the Secretary General, go ahead and sign. Governor Kingi is a lawyer, tells the Secretary General, ata kama ni ukora, sign. So all these people said, let's sign.
Because of you believe in good faith.
Okay.
When people are senior, as President Uhuru Kenyatta, when somebody as senior as Raila Amolo Odinga tells you, do not worry.
We've got your back.
We're just signing to got your back. We're just fixing Kalonzo. And you, by the end of this session, you'll get your documents. You'll go through it and you'll make amendments. You take their word for it.
Okay.
You don't start telling, hey, Raila Odinga, I'm a lawyer. I cannot do, what I mean? But Kingi did not sign. Kingi got a gut feeling. He refused for his Secretary General to sign. The rest of us signed. Alione Mbali. We never got the document. Whatever we signed on that last page, we never saw the actual document. A few weeks later, my Secretary General is called to sign another document. Now the proper coalition. Now he calls me, he says, I'm seeing it is no longer a coalition, it is now a political party. We're now forming a political party. We never discussed. People are coalescing themselves and making amendments and doing their things. They are not consulting us. It was a game of two players, 2 or 3 players. And in that document, the things we talked about adding were not there. So I told him, don't sign. And they said they are not allowing me to look at the document. By the time I look at 2 pages, they pull it away. He was very angry. He said he's a seasoned lawyer. He stands at the Supreme Court. Even Supreme Court judges tell him, go through a document before you can. They want him to sign a document. They are not allowing him to even read it. Ukora.
Who are they at this point?
These are the lawyers, and they say they have been instructed.
Okay.
They've been given instructions by the principals, which means Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta. I've told them, don't let them read. That's our reading. So we held a meeting and we we nominate Professor Kivutha Kibwana to go and look at that document. Kivutha Kibwana goes and looks at the document. Same behavior. They're not allowing him. But he manages to go through it a little bit, and he comes back and we hold a press meeting, and he told us they've introduced phrases for zoning, which mean they'll say this side is locked for Wiper, this side is locked for ODM, this side locked for Jubilee. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So the rest of you small parties, either you are swallowed or no, you can't fight for it, because once you're gay in the coalition, you cannot. They present an Azimio certificate, you're done for. You know, that's what we call the press conference. And we said the following day, in the morning, I was holding a meeting at KICC also of my party aspirants. Ukoro unaendelea tu. And President Uhuru Kenyatta called me and he said, have you talked to Raila? I said, yes, I was told that there's a meeting. I had been told there's a meeting, I think, by somebody with the rest of the team to go through the document. But I have my over 500 aspirants waiting, and they have come from all over the country. So he said, okay, Maliza, and then go and see Raila. Everything has been sorted. We'll go through the document. Everything is good. I'm in my meeting. Raila keeps on calling me because, yes, he was in another meeting. I get that. And I was not there. And he thought it's important for me to be there for that phase of being together. So I had my meeting. I even told my people, this is a phone call from Raila Odinga. Let me go.
Yep.
I rushed to the meeting. I think they had just finished the meeting. And I knew I would get to the meeting. I would be briefed. And then we'd own the thing together, because I told my delegates, let me go find out what's happening. I get to the meeting, they say, oh, Mutua has come. Mutua ameingia, okay, tupige picha. Nikaekwa hapo, tukapiga picha. Raila amekaa hapo, Mother Karua akakaa hapo next to me or somewhere there, Ngilo and the other people, tukapiga picha. Tukapiga picha, mimi nafikiri na somebody is briefing me. Raila akaingia kwa gari, shup, akaenda. Watu wakaingia kwa gari, shup, wakaenda. Nikaacha secretary, what is going on here? So I called Raila. I said, what is going on? I stopped my session to run here, and I come, we do a photo opportunity, we all look happy for the newspapers and media, and then everybody takes off. They said, no, talk to Dr. Makau Mutua, he'll brief you. So eventually, I say, can I see the document? No document. We see Makau Mutua, we meet him at a hotel here in Nairobi with part of my team. And Makau Mutua does not come with a document. He comes with assurances, I will change this. I said, what is so hard about seeing the document? I mean, I could go on and on. Eventually, another document came up. We were able to look at it. We signed it, but they didn't give us a copy. And then we were told by insiders that they had changed things in that document that was taken to the Registrar of Persons. So there was a lot of shiftiness. But then the one thing that made
Let's take a break and then you can continue with this. Because what we are hearing you say, Dr. Mutua, is that as party leader, you were not treated...
Not just party leader. I saw
the other party leaders.
I saw a tendency of people being dishonest. Dishonest from the word go. You've not even formed government. You've not campaigned. But they're already dishonest. And people were there to fix others. People are there to play games. And people who did not want. And I'll explain how I had a long conversation with Uhuru Kenyatta, which made him very angry. Because I was demanding to know what is it in there for Maendeleo Chap and Lukambani in whatever you want us to get into. What are we getting out of it? What roads are being built? I wanted specifics, and they did not want to talk about specifics.
Let's continue with that after the break.
Thank you.
Kenya's biggest conversation, 29 minutes to 9. Dr. Alpha Mutua, the governor of Machakos County, the party leader of Maendeleo Chap, is here with us in the studio, and he's telling us why he left Azimio and went to Kenya Kwanza. And what's the difference? What's in it for the people, the supporters of Maendeleo Chap? Reminding you about Istiqbal. Istiqbal, Dr. Mutua, I'm just saying Istiqbal.
Istiqbal.
Okay, spell it.
Istiqbal. Is there an English word? It doesn't sound like an Indian word.
It's a Turkish word.
Oh, okay.
Istiqbal.
Istiqbal. Is Turkish. That means
spell it.
ISTIKABA, maybe double L. Istiqbal. If it's Arabic spelling.
It's a single L.
It's a single L.
Yeah. Istiqbal.
But I got the rest correct.
You got the rest correct.
Yeah, I said maybe a double L. It was a maybe.
Istiqbal.com. Istiqbalkenya.com is the website that you go to and you look and find all this wonderful furniture. This company has over 60 years experience in making very good furniture, and they are in the country. They have showrooms on Mombasa Road, they have showrooms at Village Market, and in Nakuru, they have a showroom at that mall called Westside Mall in Nakuru. You can go and purchase beautiful, high-quality furniture, and you can also go to their website, and if you're an account holder with KCB, with APSA or DTB, you can actually purchase and pay with Malipo ya Pole Pole. We'll be back shortly after this break.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Hey, have you heard about Mbuzi24.com?
Mbuzi what? No! What is it?
Mbuzi24.com delivers farm fresh products such as meat, cheese, eggs, herbs, and more straight to your door. Fresh and reasonably priced. And imagine, it's free delivery.
Mbuzi24.com. Farm fresh food. Order now and get free delivery in Nairobi. Goat meat only 545 Kenya shillings per kilogram.
SpiceFM.
It's getting hot in here.
Oh, everybody steals. It's better a thief who brings something small back. And I say to myself, there's no better thief. A thief is a thief, period.
All those bribes, how much they are getting per year, how much inconvenience they are causing, as much as you call it a small case, it's worth it to be convicted.
The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside.
We have become a fuliza country. We have mortgaged our country because of debt.
You've got one chef working and the assistant chef wakati anatakana koroge unga nini hayuko.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Sunny conditions in Nairobi now at 15, highs of 22. We'll see highs of 23 in a mostly sunny Nakuru at 15. It's cloudy in Nyeri at 15, highs of 22 and lows of 13 today. And it's raining in Eldoret at 14, highs of 20 and lows of 13. Sunny at 26 in Mombasa. It goes to highs of 29 and we'll see highs of 29 in a rainy Malindi, which is currently at 25. It's raining in Kisumu at 20, highs of 25 and lows of 18. And rain showers continue in Kakamega at 19 with highs of 23. It'll come down to lows of 16. It's also raining out in Kampala at 21, highs of 24. And we'll see highs of 31 in a partly sunny Dar es Salaam, currently at 24. 26 and raining in Lagos, highs of 30 and lows of 25, and it's mostly cloudy. In Johannesburg, actually, sun is coming out at 9, highs of 19 and lows of 6. Kinshasa is cloudy at 21, highs of 32, back down to lows of 21. Jogo Road, Uhuru Highway and Langata Road going out through to the city is where we see a lot of traffic today. The CBD is taking its full hit today in and outbound traffic of the CBD is quite something. And there it is on the Thika Superhighway where we thought that traffic had come to an end, still building up as you get towards that outer ring junction. And that continues to be a thing. Kiambu Road here and there is easing off as you get towards Muthaiga Square. But then we're looking at Gigiri Limuru Road out through the UN Avenue, well into Red Hill Road. Still some traffic there this morning. We're going to have to look out for that one. But apart from that, it looks like most parts of the city enjoying free flow of traffic. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there. Let's chat on text 40127.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Kenya's biggest conversation continues on Spice FM, KTN Home, on YouTube and on Facebook. CT Muga, Ndu Okoh, Eric Latiff. Our guest is the governor of Machakos County, Dr. Alfred Mutua, who is also the party leader of Maendeleo Chap Chap. We are talking about his move and the party's move from Azimio to Kenya Kwanza. Dr. Mutua, you've told us there a whole story of what was happening around the signing of and the formation of the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition. Party. And the signing and the back and forth that you're having with seeing what you are signing. It sounds like all along, you people were all playing along. Even as you were asking questions, what you were entertaining us in public was the conversation and the show of unity. So when you, for example, that meeting that you were holding with your party members of Maendeleo Chap Chap, and it's also captured online with you saying, huyu ni Raila ananipigia, wacha niende, unajua baba anapiga simu, and then you go and the next thing is you're shaking hands, and in fact you're standing next to Raila and you're shaking hands and you're saying things are fine. How are we to believe that things were not what you were presenting to us?
I mean, it's very simple. We were putting up a face. You know, when you've got issues, you don't want your issues to be out in front. You try to sort them out within. And God knows we tried. I tried myself sorting out these things. I expressed my displeasure. I tried to reach out as much as possible, but we're being taken for granted. Our job ilikuwa tu kujaza lori. We're not really needed. Kazi yetu ilikuwa tu kujaza lori and continue. And there's one time I met William Ruto sent somebody to talk to me. And he said, no, well, let's have a conversation. Because I realized in this other end, I think he got a sense that I was being frustrated. He could tell being frustrated, taken for granted. And I met him. Actually, he came to a certain shopping mall and I picked him up. And he sat in my car and we drove around the streets of Nairobi and had a long chat in the evening, you know. And we went and parked somewhere and we talked for a long time. And I asked him what happened with you and Uhuru Kenyatta. He told me what is it, what is there, everything. And the thing that impressed me about Ruto, the conversation we had in my car was not about me. It was not about come and you will get this or this or this. I think this was the thing that flipped for me. The conversation that I had with Ruto was, this is what we want to do for Kenya. Umeona hii iko hivi. Umeona vile mafuta imepanda. Umeona vile hakuna ajira. Umeona vile the price of food. You know, fertilizer make up 6,500. We can lower it to this. Umeona vile imeenda. Have you seen this? It was all about Kenya. And so we had a debate and an interrogation for about 2 hours. Not about Muto Kija utapata hii. No. It was all about Kenya. You know, how are we going to make our roads cheaper? Why is it expensive? What happened to the SGR? What happened? You know what I mean? So I realized, you know, and you could tell the guy was passionate. It was not a show. Passionate, and I've seen it, about Kenya, about where we are, what happened to the dream we had.
He put up
what
a good
happened
pitch.
to everything. He put a good pitch.
And he made you feel important. He made you feel that we are engaging.
He made
telling you, I will sort you out, but telling
and
you.
we never discussed about kuja, tutakufanya hivi, you'll be this one. No. He was talking about the country. Maybe he had read me well. Because, you know, me, I'm a person of development. But I've also seen him after this. Every meeting that we hold, because he's a very hardworking guy, we meet in the morning, we talk strategy. You know, we are not talking about how do we win. Most of the time we are talking about, okay, these are challenges facing Kenyans. What do we need to do when we get into government? What do we need to put in our manifesto? But will that be really work? How do we fund it? Will that really work? You know what I mean? So I saw a commitment in changing the fortunes of our people. And I told him, nimekutokana sana. Sema hii ni mambo ya siasa.
Was it enough for you to change your initial perception of him? Because you were very, you were very vocal about what you felt about him before. Politically,
but see, I had also,
so this 2-hour ride, the 2-hour ride in the car was enough for you to then change your perception.
It was enough for me to place doubt into how I had seen him before. And we had subsequent meetings. You know, you don't change your mind on just the first meeting. But I think that convinced me. But also, the thing that really worried me about being in Azimio was the fact that I'm very, and I always say this, that I'm very fond of Raila Odinga. I'm very fond of Ida, that family. I have a very soft spot for them. He's a nice guy. But he's a shadow of what Raila used to be. He's not the same person who we used to see fighting for liberation and who has things. He's tired. And he is, and I say this with no fear of contradiction, Raila Amolo Odinga is a project. He's not his own man. He's a project that is being used for ends of means. And I'll clarify here why
did you notice this?
I noticed this even through the interaction. I noticed this because And I don't want to divulge some things that I had conversation with others, including the president. But it was very clear the fixing that was going on was also being. I was also at one time told to help in fixing Raila, in a way, because it's a project. And to tell you it's a project, look at the Azimio Party. Who is in the leadership of the Azimio Party? The chairman of Azimio Party is President Uhuru Kenyatta. He's retiring. Raila is a presidential candidate. And the way the structure is in Azimio, he is not the on top. He's not the one who is in charge of Azimio. The one who is in Azimio, the one who is the boss of Azimio today, is none other than President Uhuru Kenyatta. Raila ni mtu wake wa mkono kama presidential candidate wake wa Azimio. When a meeting is called,
and when did you realize this?
When we saw the coalition document, these are things that accumulate with time. Unaona una brush aside, unaona inajipanga, eventually it occurs to you, this is what is happening. And then now you hear the frustrations of Raila, for example. You and I think one time you commented, Raila used to have these lavish fundraisers. Nakumbuka, $1 million a plate. Remember those for years? And people would come and raise billions for him. Raila has not raised billions this time. He's not held any fundraiser because aliambiwa will fund you. And I was at a function once in I believe it was Muranga, where he was frustrated and others around were frustrated that the money coming in from the side sponsoring him, because it's a project, was coming in like medicine, tembe by tembe. And that's why at times you see Raila will go for periods of time, 2 weeks, he's not on the ground because there's no cash coming in. Because he's being controlled.
But why
money coming in?
Why would he allow himself to be controlled? I think you've said,
he got himself into a place where he could not come out. And because what Raila Amolo Odinga wants to be is to be president of the Republic of Kenya, and whatever will make him president, he'll go for it. And I did not feel that what Raila Amolo Odinga wants to be is a person who will change this country for the better. No, is to be the president of the Republic. And the way the Azimio coalition has been set up, it's divided into 50-50. Uhuru Kenyatta still controls as a chairman. I was hoping that he would retire. But
why would he retire?
Sorry?
Why would he retire?
Why did Obama retire? Why did Bill Clinton retire? Why did others retire? We're in a democracy. You've served your term. Why did Mwai Kibaki retire? You've served your term politically for 2 terms, and this is where the ideology, then this is where now binafsi unakuja katika nchi yetu. Kikwete retired.
Yes, they retire from the presidency. Yes. But does it mean they've retired from politics?
No, you can retire but you see, you can retire from active politics. You don't retire from active politics when you form a coalition party where you make yourself the chairman, because nobody appointed him as the chairman. We were told Uhuru Kenyatta is the chairman. And all those people were just chosen on a piece of paper. Even when they eventually, there's one time I decided I'm going to go to Ruto and forget this. And I was going to meet some people in Mombasa and Mheshimiwa Tuju, who I respect very much. And Tuju is a very nice guy, by the way. If you guys don't know, I like him. And I'm Mombasa, he called me, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Mombasa. No, come back. We need to talk. Where you're going is not right. I said, I'll call you. I got to Mombasa, I had a meeting. Following day I came, I called Tuju. I said, I'm back. He said, can you come and see me in Karen? I said, I'm meeting my team in my office in Nairobi, and then I can come see you. And then I talked to the president, and I talked to the President Uhuru Kenyatta from the airport all the way to my offices in Lavington. For 40 minutes. We talked to the president. And he was trying to convince me, telling me, no, listen, no, that's not the wrong place. You need to be here. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of you. And I was telling the president, but I don't have specificity. I want to know, what are we getting in Ukambani? My people in Ukambani asking me. My people, my little chap asking me, what are we getting in Meru? What are we getting in I have elected members in Tana River. They're asking me.
So now that you've switched, what
are
you getting?
And then also, what am I getting myself in this share of government? Because the coalition...
You must have been comparing.
So then what are you getting?
You were negotiating.
I was negotiating.
Already, Ruto has promised you
that we'll have mega dams. I want to remove this shame that ukiona mkambo unamwambia unaonekana uko na queue, hakuna maji kwenu. I want to remove this shame of water. I want to put mega dams in every constituency. in Machakos.
Are
in
you
Makueni,
saying that this
in Kitui.
government
You know what I mean?
did not initiate any projects that would bring dams into Kambani? Don't we already have projects?
No, they did. They did. But you see, it's not what you've done. It's what more can you do to alleviate? Because even with the dams and the projects that have been done and the projects that I have also personally done, it's still not enough. So I'm thinking, okay, we've reached here. What more are we getting? And I wanted specificity. Maybe it's my problem that I want clarity.
You want clarity.
That I want clarity. I want commitment that my people will say Mutua served, he was in this coalition, and we got the following benefits. So that even the children who are not born today will not undergo the shame that my children, that my cousins are undergoing today.
Can I ask you a question?
And at times, I think at times in life, there comes a time when as a leader, you have to say, what is it in there for my people? What is it in there that will permanently
there are
change
4 Kamba
my
leaders
people, you know?
in Azimio.
Yes.
There's Professor Kivuda, there's Charity Ngilu, there's Kalonzo Musyoka himself, and then there was you.
There's Mutua Katuku as well.
Yes, these are all Kambas.
Yes, yes.
And each of them has their party. And they're all asking what is in it for the Kamba people. Now, the others have stayed. So, are you saying that when they ask the question for what is in it for the Kamba nation, that their ask is different from yours?
Yeah, I think they're accepting the answer they're being given. And the answer they're being given is one that I was given. Don't worry. Let's go hunt. Once we kill the animal, we'll share the spoils.
So you're saying that all these Kamba leaders
yes, exactly.
seem to have accepted what you consider to be the short end of the stick. And yet you refuse to receive that, what you consider the short end of the stick, and what you wanted was, in essence, better than what they have accepted.
And it's the same reason Nelson Mandela decided to stay in prison rather than to accept the short end of the stick that others were ready to accept for his people. Because there comes a time when a leader has to stand aside and say, I'm not going to go with the majority from the region. I want to go with what is better for my people.
All right, so what else then was in this negotiation that came out for your people? What else were you promised? What negotiated? And then what has come to your table?
What was also negotiated was that I would be at the front and center in the decision-making of Kenya Kwanza, together with the others. That we would be there deciding on the projects that need to be done, deciding on how the coalition will be run, deciding on how we are going to unravel this, because they quickly got understood. And I said, I need my manifesto captured as part of Kenya Kwanza, because we had sat down with very deep thinkers and came up with a very strong manifesto for this country. It's not just about bottom-up. As we come bottom-up, we need to widen the base. We need to do things like lower taxes. They are killing our people in Kenya. We're being taxed to death, if I can say that, you know. And there was agreement in terms of those things. And then there was also the aspect of sharing government, which is very important, because you're going into a coalition to share government. And one of the things that really convinced me was when Ruto told me, he said, you came late. This is what is on the table. In terms of government positions, the running mate is going to a certain area.
Okay.
That's taken. Running mate is taken.
Chief Minister.
He said Chief Minister is going to Mudavadi. That's taken.
Speaker of the Senate.
No. What is it called? The Speaker of the National Assembly is going to this person. This is what I'm going to form. I was the one who came up with the concept of having a chief minister like Matiang'i, blah, 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 blah. But then it was taken badly. It was never actualized properly. Did not get the concept. I'm going to have a chief minister, deputy chief ministers, and different portfolios, blah, 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 blah. So we discussed all those things. And then he said, okay, what happens if things go south? Yes, you're saying it.
Going south is you don't win.
We don't win.
Okay.
You know, I'm young politically. So we looked at options. Okay. We don't win, we'll make you Speaker of the Senate. You know, because we are bound to get the majority. When you look at the polls and the people will control the Senate. You'll come in as Speaker of the Senate. And if we win, because the position of Chief Minister is gone, you'll be the Deputy Chief Minister. And I said, okay, let me choose the portfolio I want. And we haggled about the portfolio. They were thinking health. You've done a good job in health. I said, I don't want health. You know, health is okay, but I want places where I can change. I said, I want infrastructure, either roads or water. That's what I'm known for. That I build roads, I dig water, you know. and we agreed. So these are things. And the good thing is that he said, whatever we write, we are going to put it in writing, in black and white, everything. And then after that, with all the conversations...
Have they been put in writing?
Yeah, they have been put in writing and signed.
And registered with the
Georgias and everything has been done. But then it changed. Because within all that spectrum, we got a bit confused. My members and everything got confused. You know, it's like you're detaching yourself from the body that you've had for a long time, in Azimio and everything.
Selling yourself short.
And no. You're getting out of Azimio, you are there. It took a while for my people to get it. So instead of going to Ruto, we decided to remain in Azimio because they promised to change. They said, you come, we'll negotiate. And so we went and we signed a document and we remained in Azimio and we had a press conference. But do you know all the promises they made to us that we'll sit down, we'll do this, we'll discuss? Nothing came to fruition. They stopped picking our calls. I would call President Uhuru Kenyatta. As soon as we got in, Kabisa, stop picking our calls. Then my member said, it is true what you're telling us. These guys are con artists. You know? So by the time we went back to Ruto to negotiate now, we found that now my friend Kingi had already come on board and had already taken the position of Speaker of the Senate. That's how now we said we change it to be majority minority leader if things go south. So we got a document. But what is more important, that document is not even the positions. Yes, we got 20% of government. 30% is taken by... what do you say?
20% of government. What does that mean? Of cabinet positions?
Of sharing government. Of sharing government.
So this is cabinet positions,
cabinet
principal
and
secretary.
others, yeah. So you get of sharing government and everything. So it means that 30% went to Mudavadi and Wetangula. You know, that's in public domain. And then I get 20%. That makes us 50%. Then UDA takes 30%.
Okay.
You know, and then the other 20% is shared among the other 10 parties that are there, you know, because they also need 2%, 5%, you know, very democratic. And the good thing is that when these things are discussed, everybody is sitting on the table. Everybody knows what Mutua is getting. Everybody knows what you are getting. Everybody knows. There's no hidden card. There are no surprises. Everybody knows. And the documents are put in front of you and you all sign together with the lawyers hovering over you. There's no hidden card. No ukora. You know what I mean? You don't like a phrase, you debate about it, we agree, it is changed, it is brought back. You know, real democracy. You know, and I like that about Ruto. Ruto would say, Pana, let's work on it until everybody is satisfied because this is our document. This is our agreement. And the most important thing is it's not just about the sharing of government of permanent secretaries and everything. We're getting 3 ministers, you know, as for my little chap. We're getting all these permanent secretary ambassadors. It is the addendum. You know, the projects that I'm attaching, that is what is making me happy.
You have a copy of this
I've got,
agreement.
And I have a copy. And after that, you all sign it and you all take copies home. And they register it, they give you a copy. So the other Azimio mpaka leo hatujaiona. Even the one in Azimio registered, we asked the registered person to give it to us. We wrote to her in writing. We wrote to Azimio 4 times. Up to now, but I don't have a copy because I do believe they changed it.
The registrar has told you can't leave Azimio.
Yeah, but you know...
the nature of the agreement.
Yeah, they say you can't leave Azimio, but we say that the constitution is very clear. You know, and there's a higher constitutional power in this kind that says you cannot be forced to be in a relationship that you don't want to be in.
Okay.
And
let's take a break.
And there's already we're waiting for a judicial review, and we know that we will win that judicial review. But it doesn't matter. We're already in there, whether they like it or not.
Dr. Mutua, I want to say goodbye to the audience on KTN Home who've been with us since the top of the hour. The conversations continue on SpiceFM. We're just about to conclude the conversation with Dr. Alpha Mutua, the governor of Machakos County.
But before they go, can I say something?
Maendeleo Chap. No. Let's allow them to go and then we continue. Okay. Say something.
Oh, we're still...
Yes.
We
still have an opportunity to speak.
We
were just saying goodbye
ulikuwa unafukuza hao.
Yes. Atuwafukuzi.
Mlikuwa unaambia we'll see you later.
Tunawaaga kwa heri.
Unaaga kwa heri.
In a minute.
Waende mahali ndio muamisi kidogo ndio arudi.
Yes.
In a minute.
In a minute. Because also I have to run.
Yeah.
You know, you are very right about consistency. You're very right about what is your ideology. I really care about this country. You know, I think Latiff, you have young kids. I have young kids. You know, I have teenagers. and we've seen the problems. And the problems that I went through growing up, having lived in the US, having lived in Australia, having lived in the UAE, having traveled all over this world. Kenyans are being shortchanged. The type of government that we've had, the methodology of ruling that we've had, which is what they want to continue with Raila Odinga because it's a project, will not work for us. Because, Kalonzo Musyoka, for example, is being conned. Si alisema ati atapewa five ministers, for example, which is a con. I think I can discuss this after we get back because...
How do you know he's been given 5 ministers? You haven't seen the document.
No, si alisema hivyo. He alisema atapewa 5 ministers. Tukajiuliza how you give him 5 ministers because we already know, and I'll explain how.
We are concluding the conversation, Dr. Mutua, because you're also going to the top of the hour and the news.
Let me just say this then. You cannot get 5 ministers because already Uhuru Kenyatta is taking 10. Akina Munya, Balala, Matiang'i have been promised they'll still be in government. Akina Macharia. The other 10 is being taken by Raila. He's got Junet, Joho, if you can't, Akina Paranya, Ongwae, everybody. They're adding up to 8, 9. So he'll get his chief minister, nothing else. He's being conned also for him to believe that Raila can cede 5 and Uhuru can cede for him. The reason I am with William Ruto is because of the things that he has planned for this country. When you look at the bottom-up approach, the giving of credit to our people at the low levels to rise up so they don't pull down.
Why don't we do this?
Yes.
One of these days you come back, especially after you launch your manifesto.
See what I just finished this point. 30 seconds.
We're already at the top of the news. The
news. Top news, okay.
Yeah, Dennis is already reading the news.
Okay.
So, Dr. Mutua, accept our invitation. When you launch the manifesto and you have the Maendeleo Chap manifesto in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, come. Let us talk about that manifesto.
Can I just have a parting shot then?
Say goodbye.
I just want to say thank you to the listeners who will be listening to us and to tell them that it is very important as you think about who to vote for. It's better to vote for somebody who is their own person than to vote for a project and look at the manifestos clearly in terms of where we are taking this country. Who really cares for you in this country? And if you see Alfred Mutua in a place, know that that's a place for development. That's not just a place for good politics or for fixing each other. Sisi tuko Kenya Kwanza, supporting William Ruto, ndio tulitoka kwa ile azimio la ukora.
Asante. Come again soon.
Of COVID-19.
The latest news from around
workers in Nairobi County have staged a protest demanding better times of service from the employer, the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. The clinicians complained of job stagnation, saying they were last promoted 10 years ago, led by the Kenya Pharmaceutical Union of Technologists Nairobi Branch Secretary Christopher Oleta. The clinicians want NMS Director of Health Services leadership to address their grievances or else they withdraw their services. The Secretary, Kenya National Union of Nurses, Bozo and Chari, said they will not relent until their concerns are addressed. The clinicians who marched to the NMS headquarters want an audience with Nairobi Metropolitan Services Major General Mohammed Badi, saying they will not relent until their concerns are addressed. And First Lady Margaret Kenyatta has assured of her commitment to supporting efforts geared towards conserving and protecting pangolins, which are some of the most endangered animals in the world today. The First Lady emphasized that her support for conservation efforts will not stop at the protection of pangolins but will extend to all wildlife. The First Lady spoke when she met a team dedicated to the protection and conservation of pangolins through an initiative dubbed Pangolin Project, which paid her courtesy call at State House, Nairobi. The Anti-Corruption Court has frozen 115 million shillings found in a Standard Chartered bank account belonging to Isabel Nyaguthi Wanjohi. The court has also prohibited Nyaguthi, her agents or representatives from transacting, withdrawing, using the said amount. Lady Justice E.N. Minor has further directed that the said amount be deposited in the Assets Recovery Agency account at Kenya Commercial Bank. This after the agency sought orders barring Nyaguthi from accessing the funds until a court case on the source of the funds is heard and determined. And financial inclusion is driving better access to health and education across Middle East and Africa, according to a new white paper from Mastercard. The study, Financial Inclusion, connecting people to finance, health, and education, explores how health, education, digital, and financial inclusion are all intertwined to unlock greater prosperity and well-being for communities across the region. It reveals that access to finance, healthcare, and education has become even more of a challenge over the past 2 years since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic as a result of movement restrictions and lockdowns. This has placed a greater need for digitally delivered financial inclusions and for using these as a platform to distribute health and education services to the masses. And President Uhuru Kenyatta opened the new permanent premises of the Trade and Development Bank. The magnificent 20-floor tower located in Nairobi's Kilimani area will serve the bank's Eastern Africa regional headquarters as well as regional operations hub. The head of state noted that the new building symbolized the exponential growth of the Trade and Development Bank since its inception 40 years ago. A national women's volleyball team head coach Paul Bitok has named his provincial squad set to travel to Brazil for a 2-month-long camp ahead of the World Championship set for September 23rd to October 15th in Netherlands and Poland. Bitok is handling the team alongside 4 Brazilian coaches led by Luizoma de Moura, who have been seconded to Kenya by the International Volleyball Federation as part of the Volleyball Empowerment Program in Sao Paulo. The seasoned coach injected fresh blood in the 20-member squad by giving first call-ups to 6 rookies led by KCB trio Magdalene Wende, Belinda Baraza and Faith Imodia, Kenya Prisons outside hitter Meldina Sunday, KDF setter Veronica Kilabat and libero Veronica Makoha. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM.
All right, as we're coming into the city, we still have some traffic here this morning, coming off from Gong Road, then out towards Community and into the CBD. Not too bad, at least for now. On Jogger Road, going out towards Landis. Landis Road has been behaving very well today. Then you get to the Kamkunji roundabout and boom, you're stuck in traffic that's getting onto Haile Selassie. And then into the CBD, coming off the Thika Superhighway, much better now. Just at that Pangani underpass nook with Muthaiga Square is where you have some traffic as well coming off of Kiambu Road. So we'll keep an eye on that. Outer Rings looked really good all morning as you connect then with the Thika Superhighway. So let's keep an eye on things. Out of traffic are officially in about half hour or so. So let's keep an eye on things and see what it looks like then. Let's talk. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
All right, 7 minutes after 9, Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. How are you doing? Welcome to the final hour of the show this Wednesday morning. It's the 8th day of April. At least we crossed over unanimously and agreed we are moving over from March. We get into April. Even though the road has not been launched, it's being used, right? But because the other sections have not been, and you've seen this morning, the stage opposite Calro has been opened.
Oh, it's been opened. By the way, over here at the thing, General Motors,
the General Motors
roundabout has been opened, right?
The roundabout.
Yeah.
That thing, since we believe the word con, it's a con. That thing is a con.
Wow.
That roundabout is a headache. Have you seen the kind of traffic it's causing on Mombasa Road, townbound?
No.
Because vehicles getting there, one, there's a bus stop. Because
right there.
Because of the footbridge, there's a bus stop. And then there are vehicles that are on this fast lane, and there's no deceleration lane to get into the roundabout and exit. It's just chaotic. It's total madness.
Still crazy.
It's total madness. It's Anyway, City.
Yes.
The day's proverb.
Don't be like a shadow. Okay? The shadow is a constant companion, but it's never a comrade.
Don't be like a shadow. A shadow is a constant companion, but it never what?
It's never a comrade.
It's just there. One that does not help you in any way, shape or form.
Yes.
Shape or form.
Right?
Form.
Yeah. So we are going to have a next conversation with Omar Elmawi. Ednah, where is Omar? Omar is sitting out here. Our next conversation is with Omar Elmawi, who is the coordinator of Stop the East African Crude Oil Pipeline campaign. This is civil society organizations that are coming together to push for the rejection of this particular pipeline being constructed from Uganda in Tanzania all the way coming towards from Uganda in Tanzania. From Uganda to Tanzania.
From Uganda in Tanzania. It's okay also. That works. No problem.
Let the East African community work as
It's
one
called
unit.
the blending of state sovereignty.
That is very good. Excellent. Excellent.
And we're here
and
for
let the
it.
pipeline blend it further.
Yes. So the pipeline is meant to be 1,443 kilometers long. It's a crude oil pipeline and infrastructure to transport Uganda's crude oil from Hoima in Uganda to Tanga in Tanzania. If constructed, this will be the longest heated crude oil pipeline in the world, producing an estimated 34 million tons of carbon emissions annually, according to environmental experts and campaigners. The project has already displaced thousands and threatens the water resources, livelihoods of millions of people in the Lake Victoria Basin, as well as wildlife. Now, there's an organization called 350africa.org that is an international movement of ordinary people working to end the age of fossil fuels and build a world of community-led renewable energy for all. The Stop ECOP, let's just call it. Stop the ECOP campaign is one that is pushing and championing against the construction of this particular one. The coordinator of this campaign, Omar Elmawi, joins us in the studio now. Good morning, Omar.
Good morning to you.
Good to have you in the Situation Room.
Thank you for inviting me.
Welcome and occupy the hot seats with pride.
Definitely, I plan to.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Omar, you've just had me talking about this East African crude oil pipeline. We've known about it. We've heard about it. We've seen the deals that were being signed by the two presidents of Uganda and Tanzania. Total Energies is running the project. We know also there was a whole conversation about Kenya having a similar project that goes all the way into Uganda and transports crude oil through the port of either Mombasa or the port of Lamu at Lapset. But then there's opposition to this. But before we talk about that, let's understand the organization that you represent. 350africa.org.
Yeah, definitely. So today I'm representing 350 Africa, which is a Pan-African organization that's trying to push for making sure that we do not have any fossil fuel projects in Africa. And it also has a global chapter. And why we're trying to do that is not because we are against development. It's not that because we don't want our people to gain employment, but because when we looked at all different parameters on these so-called developments in courts, we realized that it's harming more our people, and it's only benefiting the financial institutions as well as the companies that are coming to Africa to extract these resources at the expense of Africa and Africans. So that's the gist of the organization. But I'm here also to represent the Stop East African Crude Oil Pipeline campaign or coalition, which is not just 350 Africa, but a consortium of more than around 260 organizations that have come together from all parts of the world to try and stop not just the East African crude oil pipeline, but any other fossil fuel project that's happening within the whole of Africa. So that's sort of in a nutshell about 350 and the campaign that I represent here today.
Okay. So stop the East Africa crude oil pipeline, and we've heard that a couple of times. And then when you have a campaign that starts with that stop, then you're giving the impression that something is wrong, right?
Exactly.
So what exactly is going on here, and why have a campaign to stop something that for many folks have thought this is something great in terms of access for the region?
Yeah, and as you'll imagine, it's something that we are actually having a lot of public debate around, because to many people it looks more aggressive and more of we're trying to stop sovereign countries from making decisions that they need to take. But our position and why we're saying no to it is, as you've already said, I mean, the picture that has been painted is that this is going to be an important project that's going to be making sure that we're taking or utilizing the resources that are found in East Africa, and that it's going to create job opportunities for people, unemployed people, and also it's going to create cheap oil and fuel for our countries to prosper. But because we've taken our time and we've looked at all the different facts that are available, we've realized that one, the East African crude oil pipeline is a project that Total Energy, which is not an African company, owns more than 60% of. And together with another company, they own about 70% of the pipeline. And therefore, our East African colleagues, Uganda and Tanzania, only have to share about 15% each from the proceeds of the pipeline. And what this means is that therefore, all about 60% of the profits will be going to abroad, to other countries, while we are taking all of the risks, we are taking all of the impacts, and we're also taking all of the pollution that is happening here. So that's why we're saying stop, because it's not in the best interest of East Africa for this project to proceed, because it does to us more harm than any good that's being tried to push.
So is your position bigger on the ownership structure of this project, or is it on the fact that this pipeline is transporting crude oil?
It's on every other dimension.
Which one is bigger?
As I mentioned. So
if it wasn't Total Energies,
yeah,
if it was a Ugandan and Tanzanian company, a consortium of companies domesticated in Uganda and Tanzania that were constructing this, would you be okay with it?
The thing is, as I said, it's not the only parameter that we're using, because apart from saying that despite all the impacts and that all the profits are going abroad, also there are better alternatives in this case. So we're not just saying stop, that we don't want development. We're saying there are better pathways for people to develop. And therefore, if we really wanted to improve East Africa and East Africans, then why not invest in renewable energies that are cheaper, if not competitive, to fossil fuels? And we don't have to be worried about all of these impacts that we're speaking about. So it won't really matter about who's doing it. But at this point, we are it's double jeopardy for us, because we are none of our companies here in Africa are benefiting from the project. But then secondly, we are also going to be suffering from the impacts of the same.
Why 350? Why not 450? Why not 650?
Or 360?
Or even 1,000? Why?
180.
Why?
Yeah, exactly. So I should have started by saying 350 is what they call the particulate, the amount of carbon that's available on the atmosphere.
Parts per million.
Yeah, parts per million.
Yes.
And when it was formed, that was what it was at that particular time.
Yes.
That was about 10 or so years ago. So it was around 350 parts per million. And therefore, we wanted to at least have a baseline of showing when we started, this is where we are. And as we keep progressing, this is the whatever things that we're benefiting or we're gaining as we're trying to.
So the 350 is what you call a safe margin.
Yes, exactly.
And right now, those who understand this science claim that we are at what, 400?
Yeah, it's about more than around that. Yeah,
which means we are at a point where we are actually in danger.
Yes, exactly.
Now, explain to us so that we may understand the danger that we speak of. What does it actually present in real terms? When we go beyond the 350 and we get to 400, what then presents it? What harm are we likely to see, or are we likely to witness?
Yeah, and it's a good question because, I mean, let's put away the science and speak about how things are actually manifesting in Africa, for instance.
Yes.
So, for instance, in Africa, historically, we've contributed to about only 4% of the historical emissions, carbon emissions that we're speaking about, but we are actually one of the most affected continents. So if you speak about cyclones Idai, if you come back home here in Kenya, talk about some of the locust invasions, talk about floods and other things that are happening as manifesting as natural disasters are actually because of the exacerbating impacts of climate change, which Kenya has alluded that it's affecting us significantly. And it's one of the reasons why our president has, even in different platforms, committed to get Kenya towards 100% renewable energy country that's only depending on renewable energy, partly because of how climate change is affecting us. And therefore, for us, the more we are emitting more carbon on the environment, the more the climate change becomes a serious issue. And it's a big problem right now because as I said, because Africans are saying that we have not contributed as much to climate emissions, we're now saying that we need to be given an opportunity to also take advantage of what the global north has done for us to be able to get to where they are right now. And while this might look as an incentive of something that makes a lot of sense, but we've also looked at different places where fossil fuels are happening in Africa, and we've actually seen that fossil fuels do not necessarily make countries richer. They actually contribute to impoverished countries. Just take an instance, a country like Nigeria. Nigeria is one of the biggest economies in Africa, but I think in 2018 or 2019, Nigeria overtook India by having the most people living under extreme poverty. And therefore, what this shows is that it's not necessarily about the revenue that's coming to the country, but it's also about the other different factors that are being affected. So is tourism being affected? Is agriculture being affected? And how many jobs do these industries bring into the economy? And therefore, do we factor all of these impacts before we start thinking about one single source of revenue that might be affecting all these different other factors? I think that's what they call the Dutch disease.
So even as we look at all those things, we are talking about Africa, where very many of the economies in Africa are actually underdeveloped, right, or developing economies. But they bear the brunt of this climate change from the countries that are the bigger polluters. So today, as you're launching your campaign and saying let's not go into fossil fuel production, let's explore ways of going green energy production, you'll agree that still more of the energy production in Africa is green than fossil.
Not necessarily. There are countries that are really green in Africa in terms of the energy progression. There are countries that are really bad. But I agree with you that
on average.
But I agree with you that Africa, we have more than 600 million people that don't have access to energy, especially electricity.
Yep.
And it's one reason why majority of the African countries are speaking about gas, for instance, as a transition fuel for us to catch up with the rest of the world before we can now start speaking about renewable energy. But as I said, I mean, while we are acknowledging that we have energy shortfalls, we are saying that this is an opportunity for Africa to show that we can actually leapfrog fossil fuels and show leadership in terms of making sure that we implement and use renewable energy. For instance, here's a fact I'm going to throw out. Africa has the most potential for solar energy within the whole world. And less than 1% of solar capacity, global solar capacity, is in Africa. And that already tells you that we are not investing enough resources in renewable energy within Africa because, one, it's available in plentiful. Two, we are not worried about things like wars and global markets changing, that the fuel is going to be expensive. Once we have the wind, we have the solar, then this is a fuel that's available. We don't have to worry about escalating fuel prices. And then third, as technology keeps progressing, they're saying that within the next 2 years, right now, renewables, especially wind and solar, are competing with fossil fuels. Within the next 2 years, fossil fuels will be expensive, more expensive than renewable energy.
So why aren't African countries exploring solar, wind, and other renewables?
I can only speculate because I don't know who's advising them. But I think, one, they're looking at the short gains in terms of how the model has been set, is that we are looking at selling this energy. And the sad thing is that most of these fossil fuels, while we're saying they're for Africa, they're not actually for Africa. Most of them are taken into international market all over Africa. I mean, if you talk about oil in Nigeria, if you talk about oil in the East African crude oil pipeline, why they need the pipeline is that oil can be taken from Uganda to Tanzania into oil tankers and go into international markets.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that we are solving the energy crisis in Africa, but we're actually, exploiting and sending these resources out there.
Back to my question. So why are African countries not exploiting solar, wind, and others to provide energy to African populations?
As I said, for different reasons. One, I would think maybe it's because, as I said, it's an easy sell in terms of selling these resources. Secondly, I would say maybe they are not really informed by sort of making decisions to benefit the public, but maybe just few individuals within government who are looking at making quick killings, kickbacks, and other different incentives that they might have. But then third, it's maybe someone have not informed them as much. And I think they have more clever people than I am. I have no background around energy, but I've looked at all the different parameters, and I know that fossil fuels don't necessarily help. Here's an example. Just here in Kenya, I mean, I'm sure you've heard about the Turkana oil explorations and the Aili oil project that we tried to push for the country. And there was even a tussle because these people, especially the companies that are investing in Africa, are the ones that are coming here. They're the ones who determine what agreements we sign. And some of these agreements that we've signed are really skewed to benefit them than benefiting us. And they were even in a tussle about how much money really had they put or injected into making sure that they get the oil out of the ground. And the government was saying this is more money than what they thought. But because we are not necessarily well prepared in dealing with these issues, before even the exploration phase, it means that at the end of it, we end up gaining the least, while all of these resources end up going to.
But why do we blame the oil companies? They are businesses.
Yep.
I mean, they don't pretend that the purpose of their wanting to do business with us is to benefit us. Some of them are companies with shareholders. They are responsible for their shareholders. What is it that I would argue we should consider focusing on? How best then can we find a position where we can actually get better deals for ourselves? Because blaming the oil companies is a zero-sum game. They are doing what they do. Why don't we take a position, or what has been done to ensure that we take a position that would benefit us? That is the first point I want to raise. The second one, when people talk of fossil fuels, it is just the negative aspects. Are there any positive aspects of fossil fuels? I mean, are there ways in which you can exploit fossil fuels safely without all the backlash that we keep hearing? Or is there nothing positive that can be derived from fossil fuels?
Really, really good questions. So if I will start with the first one around companies and why we are making them their adversaries or enemies at this particular point, is one, they're not the only enemies, and I agree with you. I mean, for them, their interest is to make as much profit as possible and minimizing their costs. That's their whatever they're trying to do. And their allegiance is not to governments or to people. It is to their shareholders who are their bosses. So this makes a lot of sense. But we also know that some of these companies are quite rich. Their reach is quite deep, and they're able to topple governments. They're able to create civil unrests. While there might not be direct connections, but it's shown that fossil fuels, for instance, Mozambique in this particular matter, they're having a lot of civil unrest issues, increased militarization, lack of democracy because of exploiting, LNG, liquefied nitrogen gas, in terms of from the economy. And therefore, while we're saying they're not the people who are the biggest problem, because one, we have people who we've elected into government who should ideally be our representatives and should be making deals in the best interest of the people. But they're not doing the same. And therefore, it's one of the reasons why we're not just targeting the companies, we're also targeting these governments, because we want to have them on the same table, make them really understand why these fossil fuel projects are not necessarily helping the governments. I mean, the deals that they're making, the risks that they're taking on the deals, the debt that they are getting into the economy to keep exploiting some of these resources is big, including the risks around these resources becoming becoming inconsequential in the next few years is also important. And therefore, we're not saying that the companies are the only people to blame. The governments are also to blame. And it's really, really important that sooner rather than later, they understand who they're really representing. People within these countries and not just the oil corporations. But on the second question, around the positives, as I said, I mean, if there are any positives around fossil fuel development, it will be some of the job opportunities that are coming from the project. And then secondly, it will be about the revenues that we are getting from it. But looking specifically on some of the fossil fuel projects we've had in Africa, the jobs are very minimal and most of them are coming from abroad. So it's not people within the country. It's expatriates from China and other parts of the country, of the world that are coming to do these jobs. But then secondly, it's also some of the jobs that are being affected. This oil pipeline that we're speaking about here today, the East African crude oil pipeline, is a 1,400 plus kilometer pipeline that's going to be cutting across about 400 villages, 200 rivers, two of the most important lakes within Africa, Lake Albert and Lake Victoria. One of those lakes, Lake Victoria, supports up to 40 million people for fresh water and for food production. And more than a third of that pipeline is passing through the basin of Lake Victoria. And therefore, if any oil spills happen around this region, which is not far-fetched because we've seen many of them happening in Nigeria and other parts of the world, it means it's a total headache, not just for Uganda and Tanzania, but also for Kenya, which shares that resource. And therefore, for us, or if there are any benefits compared to the cost, if you do a cost-benefit analysis of fossil fuels, it makes more sense to look at the alternatives that we can explore rather than making sure that we're making companies richer and richer every year at the expense of the continent.
I still want to, just from what that question that Eric had asked earlier, so which countries, if any, are making moves to then implement some of these strategies that are essentially going to aid and assist the environment? Because if I find it hard to acknowledge that something so potentially detrimental to the environment across board then is not being embraced by many governments to say, look, then we ought to do something about this. Or if it is, then the benefits of not doing it far outweigh the demerits. So who's doing something about it? And then, what example can be followed?
Yeah, so many people are doing something about it. One of the examples will be the United Nations General Secretary, Antonio Guterres, has been very clear that fossil fuels, we should be making a plan towards transitioning to renewable energy, and that fossil fuels is not the way to go. And, as the United Nations Secretary General, it shows the importance of us to move away from fossil fuels. But even the International Energy Agency, which is sort of the Vatican of fossil fuels, so to speak, in the world, they've also released several reports, including in 2021, where they're saying that we need to stop new fossil fuel projects and escalate moving towards renewable energy because of the conundrum that we are in today. Why we are not there yet is that the truth is that this business makes a lot of money for especially the companies that are involved in doing this project. And therefore, normally you do not want to get into something new when you already know this other venture already promises you money. And it's one of the reasons why we're seeing most of these companies now looking at Africa as the next frontier, because for them, one, the regulations here are not as strong compared to the rest of the world, environmental laws. And then two, even if they're strong, they are able to change those laws within a day or two.
Yeah.
You've seen them passing laws in Uganda and Tanzania on the ECOP, where they're saying that, one, for instance, they won't be paying any corporate tax, which is about 30% of the profits of the project, for 10 years. They have a tax holiday period of 10 years of not paying any corporate tax, which is 30% of the profits. They have a tax period. They won't be paying the 15% required withholding tax. They'll only be paying 5%. They are also not going to be paying any taxes on imports that they're bringing into the country. So they are value-added tax exempt from bringing some of these issues. So for them, they know that they have parameters of making sure that the law is in a way that benefits them, and that they, all of these risks are taken by the country. So for them, it makes sense to come to Africa because it's friendly, so to speak, for their pockets, and they don't have to worry too much about repercussions coming from the same.
Let's take a break. Then we continue the conversation. It's 28 minutes to 10. We are having a conversation about the East African crude oil pipeline that's set to run from Uganda, taking crude oil into Tanzania and then offshore. Omar El-Mawi is the coordinator of the Stop East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline campaign. He's from 350africa.org. He's giving us the lowdown of why exactly they're opposing to this project. We'll continue this conversation after this break. Remember, istiqbalkenya.com. Say again, istiqbalkenya.com. It's beautiful Turkish furniture. Over 60 years experience in basically making furniture. And if you visit Istiqbal today, you can enjoy discounted rates of up to 40% until the 31st of July 2022. Located at Panisa Center on Mombasa Road, Village Market, Nakuru West Side Mall. Or you just go to istiqbalkenya.com and find out what kind of furniture they have. You can actually buy and get 40% discount between now and the end of July. You can call 0790 551155. That's 0790 551155 for free delivery within Nairobi and Nakuru.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Hey, have you heard about Mbuzi24.com?
Mbuzi what? No! What is it?
Mbuzi24.com delivers farm fresh products such as meat, cheese, eggs, herbs, and more straight to your door. Fresh and reasonably priced. And imagine, it's free delivery.
Mbuzi24.com. Farm fresh food. Order now and get free delivery in Nairobi. Goat meat only 545 Kenya shillings per kilogram.
Back to cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 15. Cloudy at 17 in Nakuru, highs of 23 and lows of 15. And it's cloudy at 16 in Nyeri, highs of 22 and lows of 13. The rain is still coming down in Eldoret, currently at 16. We'll see highs of 20 and lows of 13. It's also raining in Mombasa at 27, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Still a wet morning in Malindi at 26. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 25. 20 degrees and light rain in Kisumu, highs of 25 and lows of 19, while it continues to rain in Kakamega at 20 with highs of 23 and lows of 16. The rain is also continuing in Kampala at 21, highs of 24 and lows of 18, while it's partly sunny at 26 in Dar es Salaam with highs of 31 and lows of 23. It's 11 degrees and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 19 and lows of 6, while rain continues in Lagos at 26. It'll go to highs of 30 and lows of 25. Partly sunny conditions at 22 in Kinshasa, highs of 32 and lows of 21. And we're looking at partly sunny conditions now in Beijing going into early evening Wednesday. 26 will be the high and lows of 14. Paris is raining with a thunderstorm warning of yellow going to highs of 21 and lows of 13. Cloudy conditions in London, highs of 21 and lows of 12. And it's raining still in New York at 20. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 19. Not too bad or crazy in terms of traffic, especially at this hour. Most of the traffic that we've seen bothering us this morning, that has been sorted out more or less, I guess, by the time people are going where they're going. On the thicker superhighway, that's all right. Coming off of Kiambu Road, then you're going to get stuck at that underpass there with some bumper-to-bumper traffic, quite some there. Juja Road as well, still coming in through towards Pangani and then out onto Muranga Road, but not too bad as you're getting into the CBD. Let's keep an eye on things through the day. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Business News with Spice FM.
I'm Dennis Oseto. Plans are underway to end the importation of fish into Homa Bay from China, Lake Turkana and Naivasha that was triggered by the recent deficit of fish in Lake Victoria. Subsequently, a sub-Saharan fastest-growing fish farm dubbed Victory Farm has put in place new modalities to boost fish production in the region to cap the shortage. The farm's Chief Development Officer, Cesar Sio, said that the farm was in a position to produce 8,000 metric tons of fish per year, which is a step that could help in curbing fish shortage. Non-disclosure or confidentiality agreements in employment contracts will not bar employees from blowing the whistle on their employers under new regulations. The new whistleblower regulations by the Capital Markets Authority mean that employees will be clear to inform the markets regulator of any misconduct on the part of the company engaging them in work. Reportable misconduct in the new regulations cover failure to comply with legal and regulatory obligations as required by the CMA Act and capital markets fraud. Employment in Kenya's private sector is on the decline after a 2-month run in job creation on dampened demand for goods and services in May. New data from the Standard Bank Kenya Purchasing Managers Index shows a slight decline in staffing levels as sales fell. May's PMI leading fell to 48.2% from 49.5% in April, with the survey showing a back-to-back decline in new orders across the Kenyan economy for the first time since the initial months of the COVID-19 pandemic. Impact-based Farm Power Land project has kicked off its quest to train up to 1 million developers on the continent. The Nairobi-based organization has enrolled the first 1,000 learners under the project, which seeks to provide youth with affordable, accessible and quality tech training. The 1,000 youth make up the first cohort of the program, under which they will have access to a new network of mentors and experts. The program features instructors from across sectors. For Spice Business, I'm Dennis Aseto.
SpiceFM Business. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
All right, 22 minutes to 10. Kenya's biggest conversation continues on SpiceFM on Facebook and YouTube. Omar El-Mawi is the coordinator of the Stop East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline campaign, and he's telling us why they're opposed to this. Omar, you've explained, okay, so the issues, commercial side, that the African countries are not benefiting from these deals, and then also from the pollution side. Let's take a step back, though, and look at what is it that we do with the fossil fuels. The fossil fuels are used to power economies, to provide energy that powers economies. And powering economy means that you're industrializing, that you're growing your economy into a state that can then benefit the people. If you look at the big polluters that we, so to speak, today, and then you look at the small polluters, so to speak, those are the African countries. Look at the mix of their energy. USA, 61% or thereabout of the energy mix is fossil fuel. Germany, Europe's largest economy, close to 60% of their energy, again, fossil fuels. China in the last 20, 30 years has gone heavy on fossil fuels, has industrialized, has become the magic, right? Now, arguably the superpower in the world. African countries, the ones that you're saying do not need to do this. Uganda, for example, is not using that fossil fuel that is extracting from its ground to generate its own energy. It's using it to generate revenues. Then the revenues will be used to develop the economy. And then the economy would move. Where do we strike the balance between the need for us to industrialize, the need for us to also see how best and how fast we can power our economies to industrialize, and the conversation about the pollution? And I'll explain why I'm saying this. It's because when we hear the conversations from organizations such as yours, it's stop today. And you come to African countries that are just trying to do get by. There's a project by the Kenyan government to start a Lamu coal power plant that's just going to do 1,000 megawatts of power. And you say stop. There's a plan by any other country to get into coal or to get into fossil fuels, and they say stop. Yet, the big economies of the world, the conversation happens about stop, and they say, yeah, we're going to stop. What we're doing is we are scaling down on the fossil fuels. For example, Germany has shut down its nuclear, now gone into coal, and it's getting a lot of fossil fuels from Russia, but they are still using fossil. And they are going to use it for the next 20, 30 years. As they continue to develop, what happens to the African countries that need to develop?
Yeah, and it's really good questions. And it's questions that everyone needs to ask themselves. And, you know, what you haven't mentioned is while The US 61%, Germany around 60%, and China still on fossil fuels. But the step back that they've been taking has actually been quite significant. So most of them have been cutting down on the fossil fuels. But I know people will be saying, when are we going to get into zero? But looking at fossil fuels in Africa, and let's use some of the examples you've mentioned. So the Lamu coal plant case, which fortunately I was also the outgoing coordinator of the Decolonize campaign when we were fighting against it. So it's something that I know really clearly about. So one, if you look at Lamu coal plant, the coal itself was going to be initially imported from South Africa, and then they were planning to use coal in Kitui because we've discovered coal. But if you look at the agreements that have been signed on the project, it wasn't going to spur industrialization because it wasn't going to be cheaper than other sources of energy. For instance, the Turkana wind plant. Because the agreement that we signed, we were going to be paying about 37 billion shillings just to have that coal plant to be accessible. That's what they're calling it, capacity charges. Having it there to be able to generate electricity. And we are paying more the more they're generating it. And if fuel prices for coal keep going up, it means also the payments go up. And there's a think tank that looked at the agreements, and they've said that the tariff will cost anywhere between 20 to around 75 cents, which is about 75 Kenya shillings a kilowatt hour, which is more than 10 times what we are paying on geothermal currently that's available in Kenya. So the narrative that fossil fuels will help industrialization, will help to make the country better, is not necessarily true. And for instance, look at Mozambique, which I've also mentioned from before. The gas that's being made from there or being extracted from Mozambique, it's not for national consumption. It's mostly to be taken abroad into other markets for other people to utilize. And therefore, what this means is these people are not polluting the environment by extracting these resources, and they're benefiting by getting the fossil fuels coming to their end. And they're also saying that Mozambique, Nigeria are some of the countries that a lot of people don't have access to electricity and energy, despite the fossil fuel extractions that are happening.
Omar, you see, even as you're speaking, what I'm hearing you is conflating issues. Number one, you have an issue with how the contracts have been structured, valid. Then there's the issue of whether these fossil fuels are needed or whether they're important, whether they are good, whether they can, these countries actually need access to energy. I think when you start conflating those issues, when you say decolonize, you're basically saying don't bring coal. You're not saying let's review the contract, let's renegotiate the contract. Your main issue here sounds like do not bring coal. Yet if that contract was negotiated in a different way, there would have been 1,000 megawatts of power available in the country. What's wrong with that? First of all, the technology that's going to be used is going to be a cleaner technology, the latest technology, even later than what they're using in Germany today to produce their power. Then we are talking about being able to eventually extract the coal that you have in Kitui and all. Economic development. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, as I said, I'm not really conflicting, but I'm trying to say if I was to argue the devil's side of the case, it still doesn't make any economic sense for us to do fossil fuels. And maybe the best way to put this will be one, we're not talking about hypothetical cases. We're talking about real projects that have been suggested for Kenya. And the Lamu coal plant becoming one of those cases, the technology that's going to be used is not state-of-the-art technology. Let's start saying there. It's going to be supercritical technology, which has been there for more than 50 years. So I don't know what's going to be new that they're going to be doing. And that's the definition of insanity right there, that we're going to be doing it differently rather than we've seen how bad it has been. And maybe the point that I want to make, because I see my colleague wants to come in with a question, the point that I really want to make is that these fossil fuel projects make sense when these people minimize the costs and maximize the profits. And therefore, the more you're putting technology, the more you're putting parameters to protect the environment, to protect the health, to protect the social aspects of the community, it becomes more and more expensive, and therefore no one will want to touch it. And therefore here, the argument will be, if you want us to say don't stop ECOP, then we say the people who are doing ECOP have to pay for all the impacts on environment, they have to pay on all the health impact that are going to be caused because of burning of the oil, they are going to pay all of the costs because of people losing their job opportunities in tourism, in agriculture, and other factors. And once you say this, no one will want to touch the project, because for them, they won't be making any money at the end of the deal, because they have to pay for the real costs of actually having these projects on board.
Let me ask the question. When you talk about the conversation we're having right now, I want to ask the question, who owns it? Who controls this conversation? Is it activists such as yourselves? Or is it the sort of conversation that is had because it must be had, but yet it's been controlled by the very people who you seem to be pointing fingers at? If you look at any big industry on the planet, you would ask the simple question, yes, we have an abundance of sun, so this solar, as we refer to it, should be in plenty. Why is it that solar technology, after all these years, when we've understood the sun, we have it, we don't even need to look, it's there, we even have more than we need. How is it that the technology around solar hasn't advanced to the point where it does the very things that fossil fuels are supposed to do and other energies are supposed to do? Why is it that the technology can't be invented? Again, the question is, who owns that technology? Who owns the narrative? Because the moment you bring in the discussion and you talk about carbon footprints, how it is measured, when you talk about reduction, what actually happens? From where I sit, it appears to me that the countries that are developed haven't really changed the way they do things. They talk about it. What a country that is heavily industrial does, it moves its operations to another country. Mm-hmm. They're doing exactly what they were doing before. They're just simply not doing it in their country. So that represents a reduction in that particular footprint. Mm. So in real terms, what has really changed? Nothing. But adversely, what has happened is that they've taken that carbon footprint elsewhere. So those people are now going to have problems that they didn't have before. Mm. Mm. Now, the real discussion is, if you ask me, how do we grow and develop and get to the stage where we are actually developed, yet putting into practice what you may refer to as the best practices possible? Mm. And will we be allowed to even have that conversation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a good argument. It's a good topic to discuss because one, we are not just a sovereign country, but also a democratic one. And therefore, even our laws recognize that the power is vested in the people. And therefore, we need to invest as much information and knowledge in them to make sure that they can make these decisions on what really is the best way forward. And the downside to that is that most of these agreements, one, they're not public. So people don't even know what we've signed. I mean, there are rumors that the Standard Gauge Railway, for instance, is a contract that when it was signed, we gave the port, Mombasa port, as a collateral to it. And therefore, this doesn't necessarily show that we're making decisions that are in the best interest of the public. And therefore, for me, the conversation should be that we shouldn't stop anyone from having the conversation. I mean, me as a person, as a citizen of this country, and as a citizen of the world, it's something that I want to discuss, and it's something that I really want as many people as possible to know and understand about it, because it's not just about revenue, it's about people's lives, it's about people's livelihoods that we're putting into the balance here, and they need to be invested and capacitated into a point where they can make these decisions. And it's the reason why when we engaged people on the Lamu coal plant case, for instance, majority of the people in Lamu and including in Kenya have said no to the project, and it's the reason why we won in court by getting the environmental impact assessment license to be cancelled because of the many, many problems that it had. I agree that the case is still pending appeal, but at least we won on the initial courts. And therefore, for me, it should be a topic that everyone should be capacitated to speak about really significantly. And it shouldn't be about, like the example you've made, where countries and companies are moving away into other third world countries where it's cheap labor and doing some of these industrialization processes and taking the goods to them. Yes. It's the same thing that we're calling greenwashing campaigns, where these people look at a few renewable energy projects to do them, maybe a few hundred megawatts of electricity around renewables, and then all of a sudden they're saying, we're now renewable, we're now pushing, but more than 90% of the investments is going into fossil fuel. So they're trying to make us lose the focus and start to dealing with symptoms, small headaches, when actually we're having a cancer
Which
here.
is my problem with a campaign such as yours.
Problems to us.
I'm going to tell you directly. My problem with campaigns such as yours is that instead of focusing on such conversations, instead of focusing on the conversation that, all right, so Kenya with its very few megawatts, 1,400 or so megawatts of fuel, 92% of it is green. So we are green, but we need to industrialize. And then looking at those countries that are big emitters, that are still playing games with the fossil fuels and telling us you're going green, but we shall be 40% green in another 30 years, but we shall still be fossil heavy for the next 40, 50 years. Instead of focusing on those ones, you're focusing on Uganda and telling Uganda, stop extracting your oil that can give you revenues, and so don't develop. That conversation will move from Uganda. It'll come into Kenya with Turkana. Whatever the deal is, stop exploring that potential. Secondly, focus on who owns this technology of what you're promoting. Like City is saying, if we are talking about wind and solar, who owns the technology? For Kenya to get to that point of technology, we have to buy the technology for solar, for wind. For us to be able to develop our own technology, we need to be at a certain level of industrialization. We shall not get there unless we use the available energy sources that we have today. Why is the focus not on how can we get that technology either cheaper or free?
Yeah, and it's a fair comment, to be honest, what you're saying. So maybe I should have started by saying we're not just saying stop only the ECOP. We are also working with many other campaigns. We've worked with campaigns like the Stop Cambo campaign that's trying to stop oil explorations in the UK. We've worked with different other campaigns in the global south and also in the global north, trying to stop different projects. And therefore, it's not just that we are zeroing in on ECOP or on Kenyan issues only at this particular juncture. But I agree with you, because of the inequality that we've had from before, where the other countries have taken advantage of fossil fuels and gotten them to where they are today, then it means there is a debt on their part that they need to support the developing countries to make sure that they can also develop by the best way possible. And by the best way possible here, it doesn't necessarily mean it's fossil fuels. It could be renewables. And for this to happen, and I mean, if you've been reading some of the national determined contributions we've been making, Kenya has increasingly saying by 2032, we want to cut all our carbon emissions by, I think, around 30 or 32%. And they're saying that to be able to get there, they are committing resources themselves as a country, but they also want the global north. And I'm sure you've heard about the $100 billion kitty, where the United Nations want to keep aside to support developing worlds because of what they're calling climate reparations, not climate financing, because financing here connotes that someone is giving you money and you have to pay back.
Yeah.
But it's reparations because they've benefited at the back of all our impoverishment and all of the impacts that we've seen. And therefore, it's to the best of everyone else that they pay back because of what they've benefited. So that also us, we can leapfrog all these dirty fossil fuels into a way that makes sense. I'm not saying that we should not industrialize as a continent. I'm only saying that we look at the best way to industrialize. And my case here is that fossil fuels is not that way.
Who benefits from having this conversation on the African continent in one way or another? Kind of like, we are asking you to do this. I mean, look at all the big world climate conversations that we've had over the last 12 months. What took place in Scotland, COP21, what took place thereafter, climate conference that took place in June last year, another one that's taking place this year. And it is focusing on developing countries and asking them to make sure that they reduce their imprint, right? Or reduce their footprint, rather. What do you think needs to be the responsibility of governments today? To say that what we are doing is focusing on state sovereignty and making sure that we actually are making a step forward in terms of development? Or is there a way that these two things can work hand in hand?
It's definitely fair question, and it's true that we've had a lot of conference of parties around climate change issues. I think now we're getting to the 27th one at the end of this year in Egypt, which is, people are saying it's going to be the African COP. So hopefully it's a COP about Africa, not just in Africa, where it's same deals and same things that are happening. But in terms of why we are in this conundrum right now in terms of why we are not making headway on climate action, so to speak. I would say it's mostly because, and I know I'm making the companies look really bad at this point, but if you look at the people who attend these conference of parties, the lobbyists that they take there, like majority of the people who are there are actually lobbyists that are representing these companies. And therefore, it's one of the reasons why for all the conference of parties, including the Paris Agreement, you're not seeing any fossil fuels being mentioned there. You're not seeing any oil. You're just seeing about climate action and all these things that people are mentioning. And therefore, that's the problem that you're in, because the bargaining power is not the same. These people invest money, resources, and all their time to this. They do marketing, advertisement, and all other issues. And therefore, it's one of the reasons why people are still buying the issue. But I agree with you. At the end of the day, we have voted in people who should be responsible and should act less like leaders and more like representatives. And by being representatives, it means making decisions that supports and take care of us, so that we see less and less of droughts in Africa. All these natural disasters, it's not because God hates us. It's because of our own human actions that we've been doing. And therefore, the more we stop blaming God and coming back to our own real reasons why we've caused them, it's the only way that we can get past this problem that we are in today. And therefore, it has to be Kenya as a country, Africa as a continent, to sit down and think what really makes the best sense for Africa, and not just think about what the corporates and what the other countries bring into the continent, but what they themselves really want to see, so that the continent can move forward. Because the more we continue utilizing the same methods we've been using before, it's the reason why we'll keep stagnated into being third world countries and developing countries for the next foreseeable future.
Omar, as we conclude the conversation today, and we thank you very much for coming. So you're saying stop EACOP, stop the East African crude oil pipeline from Uganda to Tanzania. Then what? Are you saying Uganda should stop extracting oil?
So we are saying Uganda should stop EACOP because, one, it's not a resource that is benefiting them. Not that even if they were to do it within the country, but it makes it even worse because it doesn't benefit them. It's a resource that's going to be taken elsewhere. The same colonialist models we used to have before. But secondly, because there are many, many alternatives that they can utilize. Uganda has the capacity to exploit its food production sector to feed more than 200 million people. That's more than 4 Ugandans, and therefore they could export some of these resources. Tourism employs about 600,000 people within the country. If they invested in this resource, that would be good. I mean, the pipeline passes through across important tourism attraction sites, and an oil pipeline has never been a tourist attraction site. And therefore, it becomes important that they look at that sector. Okay. And also, finally, the opportunities that might be lost in other livelihoods like fisheries and others is also important. And therefore, they should not be concerned about one small gain and make 10 losses going back.
Omar Elmawi, coordinator of the Stop EACOP campaign. Thank you very much for joining us today. Asante sana for all the insights and the information that you've given us. Thank you also, everybody, for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. Join us tomorrow morning, God willing, Thursday the 9th. We will be here. It's now 10 o'clock.
Spice up your life